The autumn night had settled over Eastbrook, street lamps flickering to life as Serena Brooks wiped down the last table at Maple Oak Diner. Her fingers moved in familiar patterns across the formica surface, muscles operating on memory after her 8-hour shift. A strand of chestnut hair fell across her face, and she tucked it behind her, ear with a practiced motion, her gaze drifting toward the corner booth. The boy sat alone, small shoulders hunched over a barely touched grilled cheese sandwich. He couldn't be more than 7 or 8 years old, with dark hair, and skin that seemed too pale even under the diner's warm lighting. A comic book lay open before him, but his attention wavered. Serena watched as a shiver passed through his thin frame, despite the heated interior. He coughed, a hollow, concerning sound that made her maternal instincts flare. This was the 5th time in 10 minutes she'd found herself looking his way. Something about him pulled at her heart. The diner had emptied as closing time approached, leaving just this solitary child in his light. Jacket, occasionally glancing toward the restrooms or the door as if expecting someone. Serena abandoned her cleaning cloth and approached the booth, offering the gentlest smile she could muster. "Hey there, sweetheart. Is your food okay? Do you need anything else?" Her eyes caught the empty mug before him. "A refill on your hot chocolate, maybe?" The boy looked up, startled. His grey eyes were rimmed with red. From tears or illness, she couldn't tell. "No, thank you," he replied with unexpected politeness, his voice small and raspy. "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. Up close, Serena could see the flush on his cheeks, the glassy sheen to his eyes. Acting on instinct, she reached out and placed the back of her hand against his forehead. The heat radiating from his skin confirmed her suspicions immediately. "You're burning up," she whispered, concern washing over her face as another cough shook his small body. "Sweetie, are you here all alone?" Serena asked, sliding into the booth across from him. Her closing duties forgotten, she scanned the diner. Just her co-worker, Ruby at the register, and Gus, the cook, wiping down his station. No anxious parent in sight. The boy hesitated, then nodded. My nanny was taking me home. I didn't feel good, so she stopped here to get me something warm to drink." His voice cracked slightly. "But she's in the bathroom. It's been a long time." Serena frowned, meeting Ruby's questioning glance from across the room. A sick child, left alone for this long, wasn't right. "My name's Serena," she offered gently. "What's yours?" "Theo," he whispered between coughs, small shoulders trembling with each one. Beneath the table, his fingers clutched an inhaler, perhaps for asthma. Ruby approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "Everything okay?" she asked quietly, eyes flicking to the coughing boy. Serena rose and pulled her co-worker aside. "This little one's burning with fever, and his guardian seems to have vanished. Can you check if someone's still in the ladies' room?" As Ruby hurried off, Serena turned back to Theo, whose eyes had welled with tears. "My throat hurts," he admitted, voice breaking. "I'm going to help you, okay?" Serena promised, heart aching at his vulnerability. Ruby returned moments later, her face pale. "No one in the restroom," she whispered urgently. "But there's a woman unconscious in the alley behind the diner. Already called 911. I think that's the nanny." Serena's stomach dropped. This child wasn't just alone. He was completely without protection in this moment, sick and frightened in a world suddenly turned upside down. Welcome back, friends, to another journey into the heart of human connection. If you're new here, I'm Mr. Roman, and these stories of life, love, and unexpected turns are my gift to you. Before we dive deeper into Serena and Grayson's world, take a moment to join our Story Vault family by hitting that subscribe button. Now, let's continue with a tale that might just restore your faith in the power of simple kindness. The evening had begun like any other for Serena Brooks at Maple Oak Diner. The familiar scent of coffee and fried food hung in the air as she moved between tables, with practiced efficiency, balancing plates and charming regulars with her warm smile. Maple Oak wasn't fancy, just a modest establishment with its red vinyl booths, slightly sticky menus, and the perpetual hum of the milkshake machine. but it had been Serena's workplace for nearly 3 years now. "Order up for table 7, Gus called from the kitchen window, sliding 2 plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes onto the counter. "Got it," Serena responded, tucking her order pad into her apron pocket. She checked her watch. 7:45 p.m. Just over an hour until closing time. The diner crowd had thinned considerably since the dinner rush. A few regulars lingered over coffee refills, an elderly couple shared a slice of apple pie, and a group of college students occupied the large corner booth, textbooks spread across the table alongside half-eaten burgers. Serena knew the rhythms of this place as intimately as her own heartbeat, the morning crowd of construction workers and office employees grabbing breakfast, the lunch rush of nearby business people, and the dinner wave of families and evening stragglers. Tonight was Thursday, typically quiet, which suited Serena fine. She'd been on her feet since noon, and her nursing textbook waited in her locker, demanding attention for tomorrow's exam. Between full-time waitressing and part-time nursing courses, Serena's life was a carefully maintained balance of work, study, and the occasional few hours of sleep. "Hey, Serena, could you handle closing tonight?" Ruby asked, approaching with an apologetic smile. Ruby was in her 50s, with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines around her eyes. "My daughter's car broke down, and I need to pick her up." "Sure, no problem," Serena agreed without hesitation. She could use the extra hour of pay anyway. "Go ahead. I've got this." Ruby squeezed her arm gratefully. "You're an angel. I'll cover for you next week, promise." As Ruby grabbed her purse and headed out, the bell above the door chimed. Serena glanced up to see a slender woman in a tailored black coat enter, guiding a small boy by the hand. The woman looked harried, checking her watch with a frown as she led the child to a corner booth. "I'll be right with you," Serena called, delivering the meatloaf plates to table 7. When she approached the new customers a few minutes later, order pad ready, the woman was rummaging through her purse. "Just a hot chocolate for him," she said without looking up. "I need to make a quick call. Theodore, stay here and drink your hot chocolate. I'll be right back." The boy, Theodore, nodded quietly, his eyes downcast. There was something about his demeanor that struck Serena as unusual. Most kids his age would be bouncing in the booth, demanding to see the dessert menu, but this one sat perfectly still, hands folded in his lap. "And for you, Mom?" Serena asked. "Nothing, thank you." "I'll just be a moment." The woman stepped away, phone in hand, heading toward the back of the diner where the restrooms were located. Serena placed the hot chocolate order with Gus and returned to her other tables. The college students requested their check, the elderly couple left a generous tip, and gradually the diner emptied. As 9 o'clock approached, only Theodore remained in his corner booth, now with a grilled cheese sandwich Serena had suggested when she noticed his nanny hadn't returned. The boy had pulled out a comic book from his backpack but wasn't really reading it. His small fingers turned the pages mechanically, while his eyes frequently darted to the hallway leading to the restrooms. Time stretched on. 9 o'clock came and went. Serena started her closing routine, wiping down vacant tables, refilling condiment bottles, and straightening chairs, all while keeping an eye on the increasingly isolated child. By 9:30, concern had blossomed into genuine worry. The nanny had been gone for nearly an hour. Serena approached Theodore's booth again, crouching slightly to meet his eye level. "Your hot chocolate is empty. Would you like another one?" she offered, studying his face more carefully. Up close, she could see what she'd missed before, the flush across his cheeks, the slight sheen of sweat on his forehead, despite the chill outside. His eyes seemed glassy, unfocused. "No, thank you," he replied politely, then coughed, a deep, chest-rattling sound that didn't belong in a child so young. "Are you feeling okay, sweetie?" Serena asked, maternal instinct surging. Without waiting for permission, she placed the back of her hand against his forehead, the same way her mother had checked for fevers throughout her childhood. The heat radiating from his skin alarmed her. "You're burning up," she exclaimed softly. Theodore's shoulders slumped slightly, as if relieved someone had noticed. "I don't feel good," he admitted in a small voice. "My throat hurts, and I'm cold. Where's your... Serena began, then caught herself. The lady who brought you in, what's her name? Marina, he answered. She's my nanny. She said she'd be right back. Serena glanced at the clock. 9:40 p.m. Marina had been absent for over an hour. Something wasn't right. I'm going to check on her, okay? My name's Serena. What's yours? Your full name? Theodore Whitlock, he said, then added, but everyone calls me Theo. The name Whitlock tickled something in Serena's memory. She'd heard it somewhere before, possibly in the local business news. Okay, Theo, I'll be right back. You stay here and rest. Serena headed toward the restrooms, knocking on the women's door. Hello? Marina? Are you in there? No response. She pushed the door open to find the bathroom empty. Returning to the main area, she caught Gus's attention. Gus, have you seen a woman in a black coat? She came in with that little boy over an hour ago. Gus shook his head. Haven't seen anyone except the regulars. Want me to check outside? Please, Serena nodded, growing increasingly uneasy. While Gus went to look outside, Serena returned to Theo, who was now visibly shivering despite the diner's warm temperature. Theo, I think we should call your parents. This isn't normal, and you need medicine for that fever. Theo's eyes widened with worry. My dad's at a meeting. He doesn't like to be interrupted. I think he'd want to know you're sick, Serena assured him gently. Do you have his number? Theo hesitated, then reached into his backpack and pulled out a smartphone. Marina has his number in her phone, he explained, handing it to Serena. I know the code. It's 1-2-3-4. Serena couldn't help but smile at the simplistic password as she unlocked the phone. The lock screen wallpaper showed Theo with a tall, distinguished-looking man, presumably his father, both smiling against a backdrop of mountains. Before she could open the contacts, Gus burst back through the diner's kitchen door, his face pale. Serena, call 911. There's a woman collapsed in the alley behind the dumpsters. Serena's heart dropped. Stay here, Theo, she said quickly. I'll be right back. She rushed after Gus, out through the kitchen and into the alley behind the diner. There, crumpled on the ground beside the dumpster, lay a woman in a black coat. Marina. Her face was ashen, her breathing shallow. Marina? Serena knelt beside her, checking for a pulse. It was there, but weak and rapid. Marina, can you hear me? The woman's eyelids fluttered, but didn't open. Beside her lay her phone, which had fallen from her hand. Gus was already on his cell phone with emergency services, giving them the diner's address. They're sending an ambulance, he reported. Said to keep her warm and not move her. I think it might be diabetic shock or something similar, Serena said, drawing from her nursing studies. Her skin is clammy, and she's unresponsive but breathing. Her mind raced to Theo, sick and alone in the diner. Gus, can you stay with her? I need to get back to the boy. Go ahead, Gus nodded. I've got this. Serena hurried back inside, finding Theo exactly where she'd left him, though now he looked terrified. Is Marina okay? He asked immediately, his voice quavering. Serena sat beside him in the booth, placing a comforting hand on his small shoulder. The paramedics are coming to help her. She's sick too, it seems. But don't worry, we're going to take care of both of you. She picked up Marina's phone again. Let's call your dad now, okay? This is definitely an emergency. Theo nodded miserably, then pointed to the contacts icon. His number is under Mr. Whitlock. Serena found the contact and pressed call, her heart beating rapidly. This was not how she'd expected her Thursday night to unfold. The phone rang only once before a deep, authoritative voice answered. Marina? Why are you calling during my board meeting? Is everything all right with Theo? The sharpness in his tone made Serena straighten involuntarily. Mr. Whitlock? This isn't Marina. My name is Serena Brooks. I'm a waitress at Maple Oak Diner on 5th Street. There was a pause, then the voice returned, now tense with concern. Why do you have my son's nanny's phone? Where's Theo? Theo is here with me at the diner, Serena explained quickly. He's running a high fever and needs medical attention. Marina appears to have suffered some kind of medical emergency herself. We've called an ambulance for her. She was found unconscious behind our building. A sharp intake of breath came through the line. "Is my son all right? Put him on, please." Serena handed the phone to Theo, who took it with trembling fingers. "Dad?" His voice sounded small and scared. "I don't feel good. Marina brought me here for hot chocolate because my throat hurt, but then she didn't come back." He coughed again, the sound wet and concerning. Serena could hear the father's voice soften immediately, though she couldn't make out the exact words. After a moment, Theo handed the phone back to her. "Miss Brooks?" The voice was now controlled but urgent. "I'm leaving my meeting right now. I'll be there in 15 minutes at most. Please, stay with my son until I arrive." "Of course, Mr. Whitlock," Serena assured him. "I'll take good care of him." "Thank you," he said, and in those two words, Serena heard genuine gratitude and relief. "Theo means everything to me." The call ended, and Serena slipped the phone into her apron pocket. Outside, she could hear the wail of approaching sirens. "Your dad's on his way," she told Theo, who looked marginally relieved. "The ambulance is almost here for Marina. How about we get you something to help with that fever while we wait?" She went to the first aid kit behind the counter and returned with a digital thermometer and some children's fever reducer she kept for emergencies. After checking that Theo had no allergies, she helped him take the medicine and then placed the thermometer under his tongue. 102.3 degrees Fahrenheit, much too high. Serena dampened a clean cloth with cool water and gently placed it on Theo's forehead. "This will help you feel a little better until your dad gets here," she said softly. Through the diner windows, Serena could see the flashing lights of the ambulance as paramedics rushed into the alley. Minutes later, they wheeled Marina out on a stretcher, with Gus following behind. One paramedic entered the diner, looking around until Serena waved him over. "Are you the one who called?" he asked. "My co-worker did," Serena explained. "I found her unconscious. This is her charge." She gestured to Theo. "His father is on his way. Do you know what happened to her?" "Looks like severe hypoglycemia, possibly diabetic related," the paramedic replied. "We're taking her to St. Vincent's. The boy doesn't need to come unless he's related." "He's not," Serena confirmed. "But he's sick himself, 102 fever and coughing. His father should be here soon to take care of him." The paramedic nodded sympathetically. Poor kid. Rough night for both of them. He handed Serena a card. "This has the hospital information if the father wants to check on the nanny's condition." After the paramedic left, Serena and Theo watched through the window. As the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing but sirens now silent. "Is Marina going to be okay?" Theo asked, his voice wobbling. Serena squeezed his shoulder gently. "The paramedics are taking good care of her. She needs help right now, just like you do. But you're both going to be fine." Theo leaned against her side, his small body radiating heat from the fever. Serena put her arm around him protectively, struck by how quickly she'd come to care for this child she'd just met. They sat together in silence for a few minutes, Serena occasionally replacing the cool cloth on Theo's forehead as they waited. Gus returned to finish closing the kitchen, giving Serena a thumbs up to indicate he'd handle it. Just as the clock hit 10:15 p.m., the diner door flew open. A tall man in an expensive suit burst in, his face tight with concern. His piercing blue-grey eyes scanned the nearly empty restaurant before landing on the corner booth where Serena sat with Theo. "Dad," Theo called out, his voice strengthening slightly at the sight of his father. Serena knew immediately this was Grayson Whitlock. In person, she could see the resemblance to Theo. The same dark hair, the same determined set of the jaw. But where Theo was all childish softness, his father was all sharp angles and commanding presence. As he strode toward them, Serena felt a strange flutter in her chest. Something told her this encounter would change everything. Grayson Whitlock crossed the diner in powerful strides, his presence immediately commanding the space. Despite his tailored suit and the affluence it suggested, his face betrayed raw panic, the universal look of a parent whose child was in danger. His tie hung loosely around his neck, as if he'd been tugging at it in. Distress, and his normally immaculate dark hair was slightly disheveled. "Theo," he breathed. reaching the booth and kneeling to his son's level. His voice, which had sounded so authoritative on the phone, now carried nothing but tender concern. "Hey, buddy. I'm here now." Theo attempted to stand, eager to reach his father, but swayed unsteadily from the fever. Serena gently steadied him, and Grayson's eyes flashed to her, a quick, assessing glance. That softened with gratitude when he saw her supportive hand on his son's shoulder. "You must be Miss Brooks," he said, extending his hand after gathering Theo into a protective embrace. "Thank you for calling me, for taking care of my son." Serena accepted his handshake, noting the strength in his grip and the unexpected warmth of his palm. "Please call me Serena, and I was happy to help. Theo's been very brave." Grayson pressed his lips to Theo's forehead, wincing at the heat radiating from the child's skin. "He's burning up. I should get him to a doctor." He glanced at his watch. "Though, at this hour, I gave him some children's fever reducer about 20 minutes ago," Serena explained. "It should start working soon." His temperature was 102.3, high, but not emergency room high, unless it spikes further. Grayson looked impressed. "You seem to know what you're doing." "I'm studying nursing part-time," Serena admitted with a small smile. "Between shifts here." "Dad," Theo murmured against his father's chest, "is Marina going to be okay?" "The ambulance took her away." Grayson's jaw tightened slightly. "I hope so, buddy. We'll check on her tomorrow." He looked to Serena. "Did they say what happened?" The paramedic mentioned severe hypoglycemia, possibly diabetes-related. "They took her to St. Vincent's." Serena retrieved the card from her apron pocket and handed it to him. "All the information is here." Grayson tucked the card into his suit jacket, then stood with Theo in his arms. The boy seemed small against his father's broad shoulders, his face flushed with fever against the crisp white of Grayson's shirt. "I can't thank you enough," Grayson said, reaching for his wallet. "Please, let me compensate you for your time and trouble." Serena immediately shook her head. "That's really not necessary, Mr. Whitlock." "Grayson, please," he corrected, pulling out several $100 bills despite her protest. "And I insist. You've gone above and beyond." Something in Serena bristled at the gesture. "I didn't help your son for money," she said firmly, though kindly. "Anyone with a heart would have done the same." Grayson paused, the bills halfway extended, looking genuinely taken aback. People probably rarely refused his money, Serena realized. After a moment, he slowly returned the cash to his wallet, studying her with newfound curiosity. "Well then," he said quietly, "thank you, Serena. Your kindness is refreshing." Theo coughed against his father's shoulder, a harsh sound that made both adults wince. "Dad," he wheezed, "can Serena come with us? She makes me feel better." The request caught both Serena and Grayson by surprise. They exchanged uncertain glances, Serena's cheeks warming slightly. "Oh, Theo, she began. "Actually," Grayson interrupted, his expression thoughtful, "that's not a bad idea. If you're willing, he clearly trusts you, and I could use an extra pair of hands until I can get a doctor to make a house call." Serena hesitated. Her shift was technically over, and Gus had nearly finished closing the kitchen. But the thought of leaving Theo when he was so ill, especially after he'd specifically asked for her, "I'd be happy to help," she found herself saying. "Let me just check with my manager." A quick conversation with Gus confirmed he'd finished closing and explained to their boss. Minutes later, Serena found herself sliding into the back seat of a sleek black sedan beside Theo, while Grayson sat in front passenger seat, instructing his driver to head home. Theo leaned against Serena's side, his small body heavy with exhaustion. She placed a cool hand on his forehead, humming softly, a tune her mother had used to comfort her when she was sick as a child. From the front seat, Grayson occasionally glanced back at them, his expression unreadable in the passing streetlights. The car moved smoothly through the city, leaving the familiar working-class neighborhood of the diner behind and heading toward the affluent north side of Eastbrook. As they drove, Serena gazed out the window, watching as modest apartments and small businesses gave way to increasingly grand homes set back from tree-lined streets. She'd rarely ventured to this part of town, having no reason to visit the neighborhoods where homes cost more than she'd likely earn in a lifetime. The driver turned onto a private lane and approached an ornate gate, which opened automatically as they approached. Serena's eyes widened as the Whitlock estate came into view. A modern mansion of glass and stone, dramatically lit against the night sky. Manicured gardens stretched in all directions, and a fountain played at the center of the circular driveway. "Here we are," Grayson said quietly, noticing her expression. "Home sweet home." There was something in his tone, not quite irony, but perhaps a hint that he knew how overwhelming this display of wealth might appear to her. Serena focused on Theo instead, gently rousing him as the car stopped at the front entrance. "We're here, sweetie," she whispered. "Let's get you inside and comfortable." The front door opened before they reached it, revealing an older woman in simple but elegant attire, not quite a uniform, but clearly professional. "Oh, thank goodness," she exclaimed, her face lined with worry. "I've been so concerned since you called, Mr. Whitlock. I have Theo's room ready and some soup warming on the stove." "Thank you, Edith," Grayson replied, carrying Theo inside. "Marina's at St. Vincent's. I'll check on her condition once Theo's settled. This is Serena. She's been helping with Theo tonight." Edith nodded politely to Serena, though curiosity flickered in her eyes. Serena offered a small smile in return, suddenly very aware of her diner uniform, with its coffee stains and the faint smell of French fries clinging to her apron. The interior of the home was just as impressive as its exterior. Soaring ceilings, modern art on the walls, and furnishings that looked straight from a design magazine. Yet despite its grandeur, Serena noticed touches that made it a home. A child's drawing framed alongside expensive artwork. A collection of model airplanes displayed on a shelf, a well-worn teddy bear peeking out from beneath a pristine couch cushion. Edith led them upstairs to Theo's bedroom, a spacious room decorated with a space theme, complete, with glowing stars on the ceiling and planet mobiles hanging from delicate wires. A large bed with navy blue covers dominated one wall, while bookshelves filled with children's books and toys lined another. "Let's get you into pajamas, buddy," Grayson said, setting Theo down gently on the bed. The boy swayed slightly, still weak from fever. "Can Serena help?" "You always put the buttons wrong, Dad." Grayson chuckled, glancing at Serena with mild embarrassment. "He's not wrong. I'm apparently incapable of matching buttons to their correct holes." Serena laughed softly. "I'd be happy to help." With practiced ease that came from years of caring for younger siblings, Serena helped Theo change into soft, rocket ship pajamas, while Grayson stepped into the adjoining bathroom to wet a washcloth with cool water. Together they settled Theo against his pillows, the cool cloth on his forehead providing immediate relief. "How about some soup, young man?" Edith asked from the doorway, carrying a small tray with a steaming bowl and a glass of water. "Try a few spoonfuls," Serena encouraged when Theo looked uncertain. "It'll help your throat and keep you hydrated." Grayson watched as Serena gently coaxed his son to eat, her movements confident and nurturing. Something in his expression shifted, a softening around the eyes, a slight release of the tension he'd carried since bursting into the diner. "Where did you learn to be so good with children?" he asked quietly. Serena smiled, helping Theo with another spoonful of broth. "I practically raised my younger siblings while my mom worked double shifts. You pick things up fast when you have to." After finishing half the soup, more than Serena had expected him to manage, Theo's eyelids began to droop. The fever reducer was working. His skin felt cooler to the touch, and his breathing seemed easier. "Time for sleep, I think," Serena whispered, tucking the blankets around him. "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" Theo asked, his voice small and drowsy. "Of course," she promised, sitting on the edge of the bed. She began to hum again, the same soothing melody, her hand gently stroking his hair. Grayson pulled a chair beside the bed, watching the scene with an expression Serena couldn't quite interpret. Within minutes, Theo's breathing deepened into sleep, his face peaceful despite the lingering flush of fever. Serena rose carefully, nodding to Grayson that they should let him rest. They left a small nightlight on and the door slightly ajar before stepping into the hallway. In the dimmed lighting of the corridor, An awkward silence fell between them. Serena suddenly felt out of place in this magnificent home, standing beside a man who clearly moved in circles so far removed from her own. "I should probably call a car to take you home," Grayson said, though he made no immediate move to do so. "It's getting late." "Yes, I suppose so," Serena agreed, though she felt a strange reluctance to leave. "I hope Theo feels better in the morning. The fever reducer should help him through the night, but you might want to check his temperature every few hours." Grayson nodded, then seemed to make a decision. "Would you join me for a cup of tea first? I'd like to talk to you about something." Curious, Serena followed him downstairs to a warm, inviting kitchen that felt surprisingly homey despite its professional-grade appliances and marble countertops. Edith had left a teapot and cups on a tray before apparently retiring for the night. As Grayson prepared 2 cups of tea, Serena took a seat at the kitchen island, watching his confident movements. For a wealthy man who probably had people do everything for him, he seemed comfortable making tea. "Milk? Sugar?" he asked. "Just a little honey, if you have it," she replied. He found a jar of honey in a cabinet and added a spoonful to her cup before sliding it across to her. Their fingers brushed briefly as she accepted it, a fleeting warmth that sent an unexpected shiver up her arm. "Serena," Grayson began, leaning against the counter opposite her, "I want to thank you again for what you did tonight. Not just for calling me or for helping with Theo's fever, but for being kind to him when he was alone and scared. That means more to me than I can express." The sincerity in his voice touched something in Serena. "He's a wonderful boy," she said honestly. "Anyone would have wanted to help him." "Not everyone would have," Grayson countered, his eyes meeting hers. "The world isn't always as compassionate as you seem to be." Serena sipped her tea to hide her discomfort at the compliment. "How long has Marina been Theo's nanny?" she asked, changing the subject. "About 8 months, Grayson replied, his expression clouding slightly. "Since his mother—" He trailed off, then cleared his throat. "Helena passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. It's been just Theo and me since then, with a rotating cast of caregivers." "I'm so sorry," Serena said softly, her heart aching for both father and son. Grayson nodded his acknowledgement. "It's been hard on him, on both of us. And to be honest, he hasn't connected well with most of the nannies and sitters we've had. He's a sensitive kid, takes time to trust new people." He paused, studying her over the rim of his teacup. "Which is why I was surprised by how quickly he bonded with you tonight." Serena wasn't sure how to respond to that, so she simply waited, sensing he had more to say. "Marina will likely need time to recover," Grayson continued. "The doctor I spoke with while you were settling, Theo, mentioned she might need a few weeks of rest, possibly longer depending on her condition." He set down his cup and leaned forward slightly. "Serena, I know this is unorthodox given we just met, but I'd like to offer you a position as Theo's temporary caregiver while Marina recovers. Possibly longer, if it works out." Serena nearly choked on her tea. "Me? But you hardly know me." "I know enough," Grayson replied with surprising certainty. "I know you're studying nursing, which means you have medical knowledge valuable for childcare. I know you're kind and patient. Most importantly, I know Theo trusts you, and that's rare and precious." Serena's mind whirled. A job offer from a billionaire CEO to care for his son in this mansion. It seemed absurd. Yet the practical side of her brain immediately calculated what this could mean. Better pay than waitressing, surely more regular hours, perhaps even the ability to take more nursing classes. I don't know," she stammered honestly. "This is a lot to take in. You barely know me, Mr. Whitlock. How can you trust a stranger with such an important job?" "Grayson," he corrected gently. "And sometimes you have to trust your instincts. Mine are telling me you're exactly what Theo needs right now." His gaze was steady, earnest. "The position would include competitive pay, flexible hours so you can continue your studies, and full benefits. You could stay in the guest house if commuting is an issue." The offer was tempting, more than tempting. Yet something held Serena back from immediately accepting. This wasn't just about a job. It was about becoming part of this child's life, and by extension, his father's life as well. The responsibility felt enormous. "Could I think about it?" she asked finally. "This is a big decision." Grayson nodded, seeming pleased rather than offended by her caution. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, writing a number on the back. "That's my personal cell. Call or text any time with your decision, or if you have questions." As Serena accepted the card, their fingers brushed again, and this time, she was certain the contact lingered a moment longer than necessary. When she looked up, Grayson was watching her with an expression that made her heart beat a little faster, interest certainly, but also something like hope. "In the meantime," he added, "it's late. Let me have Martin drive you home." Serena nodded, suddenly aware of the exhaustion settling into her bones after the eventful evening. As they walked toward the front door, she glanced back toward the stairs, thinking of Theo sleeping peacefully upstairs. "He'll be okay," Grayson assured her, correctly reading her concern. "I'll check on him through the night." At the door, he hesitated, then extended his hand. "Thank you again, Serena. Whatever you decide about the job offer, you've done more for us tonight than you know." Serena shook his hand, but instead of the formal gesture she expected, Grayson clasped her hand. Between both of his, the warmth and pressure conveying a depth of gratitude beyond words. Outside, Martin was already waiting with the car. As Serena settled into the back seat, she looked up at Grayson standing in the doorway of his magnificent home. In the golden light spilling from inside, he looked less like an intimidating CEO and more like what he truly was, a father who loved his son, a man seeking stability in a world that had taken much from him. As the car pulled away, Serena fingered the business card in her pocket. Her life had been predictable for so long: work, school, bills, repeat. Now, in the span of a few hours, she'd been offered a chance at something entirely different. The question was, did she have the courage to take it? Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of Serena's one-bedroom apartment, casting long shadows across her worn hardwood floor. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the business card in her hand, turning it over, repeatedly, as if the answer to her dilemma might suddenly appear on its embossed surface. Grayson Whitlock, CEO, Whitlock Technologies. The raised lettering felt expensive beneath her fingertips, a tangible reminder of the vast difference between his world and hers. On the back, his hastily scrawled personal number seemed almost too intimate, a direct line. To a man whose company she'd seen featured in business magazines displayed at the diner. Her alarm clock showed 6:15 a.m. In 15 minutes it would sound, signaling time to prepare for her morning shift. But Serena had barely slept, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. Theo's feverish face, Grayson's surprising job offer, the glimpse into a life so different from her own. The practical benefits were obvious. The salary Grayson had mentioned in passing, almost as an afterthought, was more than triple what she made at the diner. It would easily cover her rent, outstanding student loans, and her mother's medical bills. She could take more nursing classes, maybe even complete her degree sooner than planned. And the hours would be more regular than her current split shifts. But uncertainty gnawed at her. She'd be entering a world of wealth and privilege she knew nothing about. What if she made mistakes? What if Theo's sudden attachment to her faded once he recovered? What if Grayson realized he'd made an impulsive decision and regretted hiring her? Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, startling her from her thoughts. A text message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "Good morning, Serena. This is Grayson. Marina is stable at the hospital and should recover soon. They say it was severe exhaustion and low blood sugar. Theo's fever broke early this morning. He's doing much better and is asking for you. I meant what I offered last night. If you're still considering, I'd be happy to have you come by and discuss details, or even just visit Theo. He's insisting on drawing you a thank you picture. Grayson W. Serena read the message twice, a small smile forming despite her reservations. The fact that Theo was asking for her touched something deep inside, and Grayson had taken the time to update her on both Theo and Marina, a thoughtful gesture she hadn't expected. Her alarm began to buzz. Decision time. Go to work as usual and maintain the safety of her familiar routine, or take a chance on something that could change everything. She picked up her phone and dialed the diner. Hank, her manager, answered with his usual gruff hello. "Hank, it's Serena. I need to take a personal day, maybe a few. There's been a family emergency." It wasn't entirely a lie. After last night, Theo felt almost like family already. Hank grunted, clearly displeased but not surprised. Serena rarely took time off. "Fine, Brooks. Just let me know when you're coming back. Dinah will manage." "Thanks, Hank. I appreciate it." After hanging up, she typed a reply to Grayson. "Happy to hear Theo is better and Marina is okay. I'd love to come by later this morning to visit and discuss everything. Thank you. Serena." The response came almost immediately. "Excellent. Any time after 9 a.m. is fine. I'll have Martin pick you up. No need for you to take the bus or a cab. Address?" Serena hesitated, glancing around her modest apartment. The idea of Grayson's luxury car pulling up to her building in this working-class neighborhood made her slightly uncomfortable. But refusing his offer seemed ungrateful, and truthfully, the hour-long bus ride to his part of town wasn't appealing. She sent her address, then hurried to get ready, suddenly conscious of how she would present herself. After a quick shower, she stood before her closet, bypassing her diner uniform and worn jeans. Instead, she selected a cream-colored blouse and navy slacks, professional enough for a job discussion but not trying too hard. By 9:15, Serena was waiting nervously by her window. When the sleek black town car pulled up, its polished surface reflecting the morning sun, several neighbors stopped to stare. She grabbed her purse and headed down, hoping to minimize the spectacle. Martin, the driver from the previous night, stood beside the car with a pleasant smile. "Good morning, Miss Brooks," he greeted, opening the rear door. "Good morning, Martin. Thank you for coming all this way." "Not at all. Mr. Whitlock was very specific about making sure you arrived comfortably." The drive to the Whitlock estate was quicker in daylight, with morning rush hour already past. As they approached the gates, Serena's nervousness returned. In darkness, the mansion had seemed almost dreamlike. In morning light, its grandeur was undeniable and intimidating. To her surprise, Grayson himself was waiting on the front steps. He wore a crisp white shirt with charcoal slacks, more casual than his business suit but still effortlessly elegant. When he spotted the car, his face brightened with a genuine smile. "Serena," he called, striding forward as Martin opened her door. He extended his hand to help her out, a gesture both gallant and slightly old-fashioned. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for the invitation," she replied, suddenly aware of the warmth of his hand around hers. "How's our patient this morning?" Grayson's smile widened. "Much improved. See for yourself." Before he could finish, the front door flew open. Theo burst outside in dinosaur print pajamas and slippers, waving a piece of paper and calling her name. "Serena, you came back." Serena laughed, crouching down just in time to receive Theo's enthusiastic hug. "Careful there. Someone's feeling better, huh?" Theo nodded vigorously, his earlier pallor replaced with healthy color. "Dad said I could stay home from school today to rest, but I feel fine now. Look, I made you a picture." He thrust the drawing toward her proudly. It showed a crayon sketch of what appeared to be the diner, with 3 stick figures, a girl with brown hair labeled Serena, a small boy with a thermometer in his mouth, me, Theo, and a tall man in black, Dad. A huge heart encircled all 3 figures, and at the bottom, in wobbly letters, "Thank you for making me feel better. This is the best thank you I've ever gotten," Serena said sincerely, her heart melting as she hugged him again. Over Theo's shoulder, she caught Grayson watching them, his expression soft and contemplative. "Come inside," he invited. "We were about to have breakfast." "You're welcome to join us." Inside, the mansion felt different in daylight, still impressive but somehow more welcoming. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating family photos among the expensive art, children's books mixed with leather-bound classics on the shelves. The housekeeper, Edith, was setting out plates of pancakes, fresh fruit, and maple syrup in a bright breakfast nook overlooking the gardens. She greeted Serena with a genuine smile. "Good morning, dear. Hungry? There's plenty to go round." Throughout breakfast, Theo dominated the conversation, eager to tell Serena about his upcoming science fair project. A volcanic eruption, naturally, his pet goldfish named Bubbles, and his favorite superhero, Captain Stella. Grayson occasionally interjected with gentle teasing or proud smiles. His attention divided between his animated son and their guest. Serena found herself laughing often, drawn into their easy dynamic. She couldn't remember the last time she'd enjoyed a family meal like this. Her own. Hurried breakfasts were usually eaten standing at her kitchen counter, or not at all. After they'd finished eating, Grayson suggested they discuss business matters, while Edith took Theo upstairs to change out of his pajamas. He led Serena to a study lined with mahogany bookshelves, warm sunlight falling across a large oak desk. Rather than sitting behind it, Grayson chose a leather chair facing Serena's, eliminating the physical barrier between them. He handed her a typed document. This outlines the position, hours, responsibilities, compensation, benefits. Please take your time reviewing it. Serena scanned the page, her eyes widening at the salary figure, nearly triple her current annual income. The benefits included comprehensive health insurance, paid time off, even tuition assistance for education related to childcare or medical training. The hours were flexible around Theo's school schedule, with weekends generally free unless Grayson had work commitments. "This is incredibly generous," she managed, looking up from the paper. "I hope it's acceptable," Grayson replied. "If there's anything you'd like adjusted, just say so. Theo's in school from 8 to 3 on weekdays, so you'd have free time during those hours for your classes or personal matters. And as I mentioned, the guest house is available if you'd prefer to live on property, though you're welcome to commute if you'd rather keep your apartment." His consideration for her needs and comfort touched Serena. This wasn't just an employer-employee arrangement. He genuinely wanted her to feel valued. "The terms are more than fair," she said. "My only concern was leaving the diner without proper notice, but I've already spoken with my manager, and I would still like to continue my nursing classes." "Of course," Grayson nodded eagerly. Having someone with medical knowledge caring for Theo is actually a bonus. "We'll make sure your schedule accommodates your education." Serena took a deep breath, realizing her decision was already made. The opportunity was too perfect to refuse, both professionally and financially. And beyond that, she felt drawn to this small family, to Theo's openness and Grayson's quiet strength. "I accept," she said, extending her hand. "I'd be honored to care for Theo." Relief and pleasure crossed Grayson's face as he shook her hand. "You have no idea how happy that makes me, Serena. When would you like to start?" "How about today?" she suggested with a smile. "I'm already here, and it seems Theo could use some company while he recovers." "Perfect," Grayson agreed, his eyes crinkling with warmth. "I have a few meetings I can't reschedule, but I should be home by dinner. Edith can show you around and help you get oriented." The next few days passed in a whirlwind as Serena adjusted to her new role. She arranged a proper leave of absence from the diner, packed essential belongings, and moved temporarily into the Whitlock guest house, a charming cottage on the property that was larger than her entire apartment. Caring for Theo came naturally to her. His lingering cough disappeared completely by the third day, and his energy returned in full force. Serena established routines, morning preparations for school, afternoon homework sessions followed by outdoor play, and bedtime stories that often left them both giggling. Grayson made an effort to be home for dinner most evenings, something Edith whispered was a new and welcome development. "He used to work such late hours," the housekeeper confided. "It's good to see him making time for Theo now, and I think he enjoys your company too." One evening, about a week into her new position, Serena sat with Theo on his bedroom floor, helping him finish a model airplane. Grayson leaned against the doorframe, watching them with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. "And then we put the cockpit on like this," Theo was explaining, carefully applying glue to a tiny plastic piece. "Dad showed me how real planes work when we visited his friend's hangar last summer." "Is that so?" Serena smiled, holding the wing section steady. "Maybe someday you'll be a pilot. Or an astronaut," Theo added seriously. I want to see the stars up close. With your determination, I bet you will, she encouraged, glancing up, to find Grayson still watching them, a soft smile playing at his lips. As Theo finally completed the model with a triumphant cheer, Serena felt a wave of contentment wash over her. In just a week, this room, this child, this home, had begun to feel like where she belonged. Isn't it fascinating how one small act of compassion can change multiple lives forever? Serena never imagined her instinct to help a sick child would transform her entire future. Has someone's unexpected kindness ever changed your path? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear today. Later, after Theo was tucked in bed, Serena found Grayson in the kitchen, making tea, a habit they'd fallen into sharing each evening. He's completely recovered, she reported, accepting the steaming mug he offered. No cough, no fever, just boundless energy. Thanks to your care, Grayson acknowledged, leaning against the counter. I visited Marina at the hospital today. The doctors say she can go home next week, but she'll need at least a month of rest before considering work again. I'm glad she's improving, Serena said sincerely. Grayson studied her over his mug. Theo adores you, he said quietly. I haven't seen him this happy in a long time. Not since. He didn't finish, but Serena understood. Not since his mother was alive. He's an amazing child, she replied. Smart, kind, curious. You've done a wonderful job raising him, especially under difficult circumstances. A shadow crossed Grayson's face. I wasn't always present enough after Helena died. Work became my escape from grief, but seeing you with him, how engaged you are, how you really listen to his stories and ideas, it's reminded me what I've been missing. The vulnerability in his admission touched Serena deeply. It's never too late to change patterns, she said gently. He clearly adores you too. Grayson's expression lightened. I think we're both learning from you, Serena. I'm grateful you came into our lives, even if the circumstances were rather dramatic. As they stood in comfortable silence, sipping tea in the warm kitchen, Serena reflected on how quickly her life had transformed. A week ago, she'd been serving coffee to strangers, stretching every dollar, rushing between shifts and classes. Now, she found herself in this beautiful home, making a real difference for a child who needed her and feeling more fulfilled than she had in years. It wasn't just the material comfort or financial security, though those were significant changes. It was the sense of purpose, of connection. For the first time in a long while, Serena felt she was exactly where she was meant to be. The diner had been a job. This was becoming something more, a calling perhaps. And as she caught Grayson's warm gaze across the kitchen island, she wondered if it might eventually become something else entirely. Autumn deepened around the Whitlock estate, painting the expansive gardens in brilliant golds and crimsons. Inside, new patterns emerged as Serena settled into her role as Theo's caregiver. Within 3 weeks, she had transformed from stranger to an essential part of their daily lives, her presence weaving seamlessly into the fabric of the household. Mornings began with gentle knocks on Theo's bedroom door at 6:45 a.m. Rise and shine, space explorer, Serena would call, entering to find him either already awake and reading comic books or burrowed beneath his rocket ship comforter. Their morning routine had become a well-choreographed dance, Theo brushing his teeth while Serena laid out school clothes, breakfast at the sunny kitchen island with Edith's freshly squeezed orange juice, and final backpack checks before Martin drove them to Eastbrook Academy. Do you think frogs have feelings? Theo asked one morning, as Serena helped him with his necktie, part of his school uniform. What makes you ask that? She replied, amused by his ever-curious mind. We're dissecting them in science class next week, and I don't want to hurt anything that has feelings. Serena carefully adjusted the small tie. There'll be specially prepared frogs that aren't alive anymore, honey, but I think it's wonderful that you're concerned about their feelings. That shows what a compassionate person you are. Theo considered this, his grey eyes, so like his father's, serious and thoughtful. Dad says good scientists ask questions but also care about their subjects. Your dad is very wise, Serena smiled, brushing a stubborn cowlick from his forehead. While Theo attended school, Serena utilized her free hours productively. Twice a week, she attended nursing classes at the community college, no longer needing to rush between education and waitressing. On other days, she prepared activities for Theo, researched child development, techniques, or occasionally explored the quieter corners of the Whitlock property, the greenhouse with its exotic plants, the small library filled with first editions, the meditation garden where stone benches invited contemplation. Afternoons brought the joy of reconnection as Serena waited at the school gates, Theo's face lighting up when he spotted her among the cluster of nannies and parents. They developed special traditions, Monday ice cream stops at a small parlor, halfway between school and home, Wednesday visits to the children, section of the public library, Friday afternoon science experiments in the kitchen, sometimes to Edith's mild consternation. "You're changing him," Edith remarked one afternoon as she and Serena folded laundry while Theo worked on homework in the adjacent room. "He smiles more, talks more. Before you came, he was so quiet most days." Serena glanced toward Theo, who was humming softly as he drew a solar system diagram. "He's an incredible child. I think he just needed someone to really listen." The housekeeper nodded knowingly. "And Mr. Whitlock is different too. Have you noticed? He's home for dinner nearly every night now. Used to be we'd hardly see him before Theo's bedtime." Serena had indeed noticed. Grayson had begun adjusting his schedule, arriving home by 6 most evenings. He joined them for dinner, actively participating in Theo's animated recountings of school adventures. Afterward, the three often spent time together, playing board games, helping with projects, or simply reading. In comfortable silence in the family room, each absorbed in their own book but connected by shared space. One rainy Saturday, Serena entered the kitchen to find Grayson attempting to make pancakes, Theo standing on a stool beside him, both dusted with flour. "We wanted to surprise you with breakfast," Theo announced proudly, though the misshapen pancake in the pan suggested culinary skills weren't the Whitlock men's strong suit. "That's so thoughtful," Serena laughed, rolling up her sleeves. "Mind if I join the cooking team?" Soon the kitchen filled with laughter as Serena taught them her mother's secret technique for fluffy pancakes. Grayson proved to be a surprisingly attentive student, his usual CEO confidence replaced by earnest concentration on the simple domestic task. When he successfully flipped a perfect golden pancake, his triumphant smile made Serena's heart skip unexpectedly. These moments of shared domesticity multiplied. Grayson, who had likely never considered such tasks part of his domain, began joining them for evening routines, helping with homework, participating in bedtime stories, even learning to properly fold Theo's laundry under Serena's patient guidance. The most revealing moments, however, came after Theo was asleep. Nearly every night, Serena and Grayson gravitated toward the kitchen, where they shared tea and conversation at the island counter, illuminated by the soft glow of under-cabinet lighting. These late-night talks became a cherished ritual, starting with discussions about Theo but gradually expanding to include their own lives, hopes and histories. "Were you always planning to go into nursing?" Grayson asked one evening, handing her a steaming mug of chamomile tea. Serena wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic. "Actually, I wanted to be a doctor when I was younger. My mother worked as a hospital aide, and I loved visiting her workplace. But medical school costs were impossible for our family, so nursing became the practical alternative." "You'd make an excellent doctor," Grayson observed. "Your instincts with Theo that first night showed real medical intuition." "Maybe someday," she shrugged. "For now, completing my nursing certification is the goal. What about you? Did you always want to run a technology empire?" Grayson's laugh was soft, almost self-deprecating. "Hardly. I grew up in a small manufacturing town that was dying as factories closed. My father lost his job when I was 14. We struggled, really struggled, for several years." This revelation surprised Serena. She had assumed he came from wealth, given his polished manners and confident bearing. What changed she asked, genuinely curious. I was good with computers, even with our outdated school equipment. Won a coding competition my senior year, which came with a partial scholarship. Worked multiple jobs through college, slept about 4 hours a night, and eventually developed the security software that became Whitlock Technologies' first product. He sipped his tea. The company grew faster than I ever imagined. Serena studied him with newfound appreciation. Self-made then. That's impressive. Just fortunate, he countered, and determined. I never wanted to feel that financial insecurity again. As weeks passed, their evening conversations deepened. Grayson spoke of meeting Helena in college, his first love, the brilliant art history major who believed in his vision before anyone else. He described their early marriage, living in a cramped apartment while launching the company, and the joy of Theo's birth after they'd finally achieved stability. Then came the shadow. Helena's diagnosis when Theo was barely 4, the aggressive cancer that took her within months. Grayson's voice grew tight as he described that period. I wasn't there enough for him afterward, he admitted one night, staring into his tea as if it held absolution. I threw myself into work because facing our empty home was too painful. Hired nannies, housekeepers, anyone who could care for him while I hid in my grief. Without thinking, Serena reached across the counter and placed her hand over his. You were doing the best you could during an impossible time. Grayson turned his hand beneath hers, their fingers intertwining naturally. Maybe. But I missed so much. Sometimes I look at him and can't believe how he's grown while I was busy in board meetings. You're here now, Serena said gently. That's what matters. Children are remarkably resilient, and Theo adores you. Because of you, Grayson replied, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected intensity. You've shown me how to be present again, how to listen to him, really listen. I was going through motions before you arrived. The sincerity in his voice made Serena's cheeks warm. She became acutely aware of their joined hands, the kitchen's intimate quiet, the way his gaze lingered on her face. Serena shared her own history too, growing up with a single mother who worked double shifts, helping raise younger siblings. Out of necessity, the community college scholarship she'd won, then deferred when her mother fell ill with heart problems. She described waitressing at the diner to pay bills while taking night classes, stretching every dollar to help her family while pursuing her own dreams in small increments. You've sacrificed so much for others, Grayson observed one evening. When do you do things just for yourself? The question caught Serena off guard. I suppose I haven't thought about it that way. Taking care of people isn't really a sacrifice when you love them. Still, he persisted gently. Everyone deserves their own joy, their own dreams. Their late-night conversations sometimes continued until the small hours, neither willing to end the connection. That was forming between them, a bridge of understanding that transcended their different backgrounds. One night, after sharing stories of their childhood pets, her beloved rescue cat, his grandmother's irritable poodle, they moved from the kitchen to the more comfortable chairs of the family room. The hour was late, the house quiet except for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I never expected this, Grayson said quietly after a comfortable silence. Expected what? Serena asked, curled in an oversized armchair across from him. To feel settled again, at peace. He gestured vaguely around the room. This house felt so empty after Helena died, just a place to sleep between workdays. Now it feels like a home again. Serena understood the weight of his admission, how much he was crediting her presence for this transformation. It both touched and frightened her. She was, after all, an employee. This growing closeness, these shared confidences, the way her heart quickened when he entered a room, all dangerous territory. I'm glad I could help create that feeling, she said carefully. Theo deserves a happy home. We both do, Grayson replied, his eyes holding hers. And so do you, Serena. Something shifted in the air between them. Acknowledgement of feelings neither was ready to name. Serena looked away first, rising from her chair. It's late. I should get back to the guest house. Grayson stood as well, respecting her retreat. Of course. Good night, Serena. Good night, Grayson. As she walked the stone path to the guest house, cool night air clearing her head, Serena recognized the dangerous territory she was entering. Somehow, in these few weeks, the lines had blurred between employee and employer, between caregiver and family, between professional respect and personal attraction. Inside her comfortable quarters, Serena changed into pajamas and sat on the window seat, gazing. Back at the main house, where a single light still burned, in what she knew was Grayson's study, he was probably reviewing contracts or reading reports. Returning to CEO mode after their evening of personal connection, she wrapped her arms around her knees, acknowledging the truth she'd been avoiding. She was falling for him. For his thoughtfulness, his vulnerability, his devotion to Theo. For the man behind the successful exterior, the one who had overcome hardship, who carried grief while still moving forward, who was learning to open his heart again. And that realization terrified her. Because fairy tales where the billionaire falls for the waitress belonged in movies, not real life. Because Theo needed stability, not complications. Because she had come here to be a caregiver, not to disrupt the delicate balance of this healing family. Yet as she finally climbed into bed, Serena couldn't silence the small voice whispering that perhaps their meeting had been mere chance, that perhaps she belonged here for reasons beyond Theo's care, beyond practical arrangements. She fell asleep imagining Grayson's hand holding hers, his voice sharing secrets in the kitchen, his gentle light, and the way his eyes had looked when he said, "We both deserve a happy home." December arrived, bringing frost-edged mornings to the Whitlock estate and holiday decorations throughout the house. Serena had been Theo's caregiver for nearly 2 months now, their daily routines. Comfortably established, her presence no longer new, but essential. The guest house felt like home, the main house like an extension of it, and her former life at the diner seemed increasingly distant. One Tuesday evening, after Theo had been tucked into bed following an elaborate bedtime story about astronauts discovering a planet made of ice cream, Serena and Grayson settled into their usual places at the kitchen island for their nightly tea ritual. Serena noticed Grayson seemed slightly distracted, checking his watch more frequently than usual. "Something on your mind?" she asked, adding a touch of honey to her chamomile tea. Grayson looked up, a slight hesitation in his expression. "Actually, yes. There's an event coming up, the annual Whitlock Technologies Charity Gala. It's next Saturday evening." "Oh?" Serena stirred her tea, assuming he was about to request extended hours that night to cover his absence. "Would you like me to stay late with Theo?" "No, that's not." Grayson set down his cup, his fingers tapping lightly against the counter. "I've already arranged for Mrs. Peterson to watch Theo. She's looked after him at several events before." Serena nodded, slightly confused. "Then is there something else you need me to do?" Grayson drew a breath, then met her eyes directly. "I was hoping you might attend the gala, with me, as my guest." The invitation hung in the air between them. Serena's spoon clinked against her cup as she set it down, stunned into momentary silence. Me? At a corporate gala? She struggled to imagine herself among business executives and socialites. The fanciest event she'd ever attended was her cousin's wedding at the Knights of Columbus Hall. "I understand if you'd rather not," Grayson added quickly. "These functions can be tedious, and it's short notice. I just thought—" "You want me there as your guest?" Serena clarified, her heart beating faster at the implications. "Not as your employee." Grayson's expression softened. "Definitely not as my employee. As someone whose company I enjoy, someone who deserves a night out." He paused, a hint of vulnerability crossing his face. "And selfishly, I'd prefer having someone I actually like talking to, rather than making small talk with investors all evening." From the doorway came a small, excited voice. "You should go, Serena. You can dress like a princess." They both turned to find Theo standing there in his pajamas, clearly having snuck out of bed to eavesdrop. "Young man," Grayson said, trying to sound stern but failing, "weren't you supposed to be asleep 15 minutes ago?" "I got thirsty," Theo claimed, though his mischievous smile suggested otherwise. He padded over to Serena. "Please say yes. Dad's parties have really good desserts, and you can wear a fancy dress like in the movies." Serena laughed. ruffling his hair. "Is that so? And how would you know about the desserts if you're not there?" "Dad always brings me back a chocolate thing," Theo explained. "Last year it had gold stuff on it." Grayson shook his head, amused. "Gold leaf. Very fancy." "Now, back to bed, negotiator. Serena will make her own decision without your lobbying efforts." After Grayson escorted a reluctant Theo back upstairs, Serena sat alone, considering the invitation. A night out at a lavish event sounded simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. What would she wear? How would she act? Would Grayson's colleagues judge her, the former waitress clearly out of her element? When Grayson returned, he seemed prepared for her refusal. "I understand it's not your kind of event. Please don't feel obligated." His consideration only made her hesitation feel worse. "It's not that," she explained. "It's just, I don't have anything remotely appropriate to wear to something like that. I wouldn't want to embarrass you." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Is that all? That's easily remedied. If you're comfortable with the idea, I could arrange for a personal stylist to help. The company keeps several on retainer for executives' public appearances." "That seems extravagant," Serena protested weakly, though part of her thrilled at the idea. "Not at all," Grayson assured her. "Consider it part of the invitation." His eyes searched hers. "But only if you want to come, Serena. No pressure." Looking at his hopeful expression, Serena realized she did want to go, wanted to see this other side of his world, wanted an evening where they could exist outside the roles of employer and employee, wanted to dress up and feel beautiful for one magical night. "Okay," she said finally. "Yes, I'd love to come." The smile that illuminated Grayson's face made her decision worthwhile, even before the event. "Wonderful," he said, his voice warm with genuine pleasure. "I'll make the arrangements." 2 days later, Serena found herself in the guest house living room, surrounded by garment bags and shoeboxes. Marisol, the personal stylist Grayson had engaged, was a vivacious woman, in her 40s with an expert eye and a talent for putting Serena at ease. "Mr. Whitlock said to focus on whatever makes you comfortable," Marisol explained, as she unzipped garment bags to reveal evening gowns in various jewel tones. "No pressure for specific styles, just what you love." For the next 2 hours, Serena tried on dresses she'd only ever seen in magazines, silks that whispered against her skin, chiffons that floated around her like clouds, velvets rich with depth and texture. Marisol offered guidance without pushing, helping Serena navigate this unfamiliar territory with gentle expertise. The winner became clear the moment Serena slipped it on, an emerald green gown with an elegant, off-shoulder neckline and a flowing skirt that moved like water when she walked. The color brought out the gold flecks in her hazel eyes and complemented her chestnut hair perfectly. "This is the one," Marisol declared, circling Serena as she stood before the full-length mirror. "You look stunning." Truly, for the first time since the fittings began, Serena fully believed it. The woman in the mirror looked poised, elegant, like she belonged in Grayson's world, if only for one night. In the days leading up to the gala, preparations continued. Marisol returned for final alterations and to discuss hair and makeup options. Serena practiced walking in the silver heels that completed the ensemble, gaining confidence with each step. Theo became her enthusiastic cheerleader, declaring her the prettiest ever, during a dress rehearsal and asking detailed questions about the party. "Will there be dancing?" "Dad knows how to waltz. Mom taught him. He told me so." The night of the gala arrived with crisp December air and a sky full of stars. Marisol had spent the afternoon transforming Serena with subtle makeup that enhanced rather. Than masked her features and an elegant updo with a few soft tendrils framing her face. Standing alone in the guest house, fully dressed and waiting for Grayson's knock, Serena hardly recognized herself. The mirror reflected someone graceful and sophisticated, a far cry from the waitress, in a coffee-stained uniform, or even the casual caregiver in jeans and sweaters. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Taking a deep breath, Serena opened the door to find Grayson waiting. On the stone path, handsome in a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, The expression that crossed his face as he saw her made every moment of preparation worthwhile, a look of genuine awe, as if seeing her for the first time. "You look," he began, then paused, searching for adequate words. "Absolutely breathtaking." Serena felt a flush rise to her cheeks. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." He offered his arm with a warm smile. "Shall we? The car's waiting." As Grayson helped her navigate the path in her heels, Theo burst from the main house, followed by an apologetic Mrs. Peterson. "Wait, I need to see," he called, rushing toward them. He stopped a few feet away, his eyes widening as he took in Serena's transformation. "Wow, you really do look like a princess, the prettiest princess ever." Serena bent carefully to his level, mindful of her dress. "Thank you, kind sir. That's quite a compliment." "Dad thinks so too," Theo stage whispered. He kept checking his watch all day and changing his tie 3 times. Grayson cleared his throat, color rising in his face. "Thank you for that revelation, son. Now, be good for Mrs. Peterson, all right? We won't be too late." With one last hug from Theo, they continued to the waiting limousine. As they settled into the plush leather seats, Serena felt as though she'd stepped into another world, one of luxury and privilege so different from her everyday existence. "Nervous?" Grayson asked gently, noticing her hands fidgeting with her small clutch purse. "A little," she admitted. "I've never been to anything like this. Just remember, you're there as my guest, not to impress anyone else." His voice was reassuring, "Though you certainly will impress them anyway." The limousine glided through the winter night toward downtown Eastbrook, where the Grand Imperial Hotel hosted the annual gala. As they approached, Serena glimpsed women in glittering gowns and men in tuxedos, entering the historic building, its facade illuminated by tasteful holiday lights. "It's beautiful," she murmured, taking in the elegant scene. "Yes," Grayson agreed, though his eyes remained on her. "It is." Inside, the hotel's ballroom had been transformed into a winter wonderland. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above tables draped in white linen with silver and blue centerpieces. A string orchestra played softly from a raised platform, and uniformed waiters circulated with champagne flutes. Serena felt a moment of panic as heads turned toward them. Grayson must have sensed her tension, because his hand gently pressed against the small of her back in reassurance. "Just breathe," he whispered. "You belong here as much as anyone." With Grayson by her side, Serena gradually relaxed. He introduced her to colleagues and business associates as a close family friend, his hand rarely leaving her back or arm, a constant anchor in this unfamiliar sea. Most people were polite, if curious about her connection to the usually reserved CEO. During dinner, they were seated at the head table with several board members and the city's mayor. Serena was relieved to find herself beside Philip Monroe, an older gentleman who was one of Grayson's original investors and possessed a grandfatherly warmth. "So you're the one who's brought the smile back to Grayson's face," Philip observed quietly between courses. "I've known him 15 years, my dear, and I haven't seen him this at ease since Helena was alive." Serena's eyes sought Grayson across the table, where he was engaged in conversation with the mayor. As if sensing her gaze, he looked up, offering a private smile that sent warmth cascading through her. After dinner came dancing. Grayson was obligated to share the first dance with the mayor's wife, as was apparently tradition. Serena watched from the sidelines, sipping sparkling water and admiring the elegant couples swirling across the floor. "May I have this dance?" Grayson's voice came from beside her as a new song began. He stood with hand extended, eyes holding a question. "I'm not sure I know how," Serena admitted. "At least, not properly." "I'll lead," he promised. "Just follow me." The orchestra had begun a waltz, its melody both melancholy and hopeful. Grayson guided her onto the floor, one hand at her waist, the other clasping hers. His touch was firm but gentle, leading her into the rhythm with surprising grace. "You're a natural," he murmured as they moved together. "Just trust yourself. Trust me." Serena relaxed into his guidance, the initial awkwardness melting away as they found their rhythm together. The room seemed to fade around them, The other dancers, the watching eyes, the glittering, decorations all receding until there was only the music and their synchronized movement. "I'm glad you came tonight," Grayson said softly, his eyes never leaving hers. "Seeing you here, like this, it feels right." "It does, doesn't it?" Serena replied, surprised by how true it felt. In this moment, the differences in their backgrounds seemed insignificant compared to the connection between them. As the waltz reached its final measures, Grayson executed a gentle turn that brought Serena closer, their bodies nearly touching. The hand at her waist slid slightly to the small of her back, drawing her nearer still. His gaze dropped to her lips, a question in his eyes that needed no words. Serena's heart raced as she tilted her face upward, her own eyes answering his question. The space between them narrowed, his breath warm against her lips. The moment suspended in possibility. Then came the sharp ring of crystal being struck, a signal for attention. The spell broke as they both startled slightly, the intimacy of their moment, shattered by the announcement that the charity auction was about to begin. Grayson's expression held both regret and promise as they separated, his hand lingering on hers a moment longer than necessary. "We should probably—" He gestured toward their table. "Yes, of course," Serena agreed, her voice slightly breathless, her lips still tingling with the anticipation of a kiss that hadn't happened. As they returned to their seats, his hand found the small of her back once more, a subtle claim, a promise of something unfinished. The night was still young, and in Serena's heart, possibility bloomed like winter stars against the darkness. As the charity auction neared its conclusion, a buzz of whispers spread through the ballroom. Heads turned toward the entrance where a striking woman in her early 60s had appeared. She stood tall and elegant in a navy gown, her silver-grey hair swept into an immaculate chignon, pearls gleaming at her throat. She surveyed the crowd with the confidence of someone who knew exactly her place in the world, at the top. Grayson tensed beside Serena, his posture shifting subtly from relaxed to alert. "My mother," he explained quietly. "I didn't expect her tonight. She usually winters in the Cayman Islands." "Eleanor Whitlock," Philip murmured to Serena. "The power behind the throne, so to speak. Formidable woman." Serena watched as Eleanor moved through the room with practiced grace, acknowledging guests with regal nods. People parted before her like water around the bow of a ship. Though physically resembling her son with the same aristocratic features and piercing grey eyes, Eleanor carried herself with a coolness Grayson lacked, his warmth replaced by practiced precision. Eventually, Eleanor's gaze landed on their table, specifically on Serena seated beside Grayson. Her eyes narrowed slightly before her expression smoothed into a polite mask. She began making her way toward them with clear purpose. "Brace yourself," Grayson whispered, standing to greet his mother. "She can be direct." Eleanor arrived at their table, accepting her son's dutiful kiss on her cheek. "Grayson, darling, I got here as soon as I could. You know I wouldn't miss our company's gala for the world." Her voice was cultured, melodic, but carried an undercurrent of frost. Her eyes shifted to Serena. "And who might this be?" Grayson placed a protective hand on the small of Serena's back as she rose. "Mother, this is Serena Brooks. She's been caring for Theo these past months." "Serena, my mother, Eleanor Whitlock." Serena extended her hand with a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Whitlock." Eleanor's handshake was brief and perfunctory, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Miss Brooks." "Yes, I recall Grayson mentioning a new caregiver for Theo." Her gaze swept over Serena's emerald gown, the elegant hairstyle, the way she stood close to Grayson. "I didn't realize you'd be attending this event." "I invited her," Grayson stated, his tone polite but firm. "Serena has become an important part of our household. She's done wonders for Theo." "How lovely," Eleanor replied, though her tone remained cool. She turned her attention fully to Serena, eyes assessing. "I trust everything at home has been running smoothly. My son's schedule is quite demanding, as you know. It must be a challenge handling things in his absence." The question seemed innocent, but Serena detected the subtle probe beneath it. This was an evaluation, pure and simple. Theo is a delight to care for, Serena answered evenly. And Grayson has been very involved whenever possible. We ensure Theo is well looked after and happy. Eleanor's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched at Serena's use of Grayson's first name. Before she could respond, the auction concluded with applause, and the orchestra resumed playing. "We should catch up, darling," Eleanor said, placing a manicured hand on Grayson's arm. "It's been weeks. Why don't we step aside for a moment? I'm sure Miss Brooks won't mind." Grayson hesitated, glancing at Serena. She gave him a small nod. "Go ahead." "I'll be fine." With visible reluctance, Grayson allowed his mother to guide him toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. Serena pretended to be interested in her program, but her eyes followed their exchange. Though she couldn't hear their words, their body language told enough, Eleanor speaking intently, occasionally glancing. In Serena's direction, Grayson's posture growing increasingly rigid, shaking his head at something his mother said. After a few minutes, Grayson's expression hardened. He said something brief and final before turning and walking back toward Serena, leaving Eleanor standing alone, lips pressed into a thin line. "Everything all right?" Serena asked as he returned. "Fine," Grayson assured her, though the tension around his eyes suggested otherwise. "Mother can be protective. Don't let it worry you." But worry lingered in Serena's mind throughout the remainder of the evening, though Grayson did his best to ensure she enjoyed herself, introducing her to friendly colleagues, sharing another dance, bringing her a plate of the chocolate dessert Theo had mentioned. Eleanor's presence cast a shadow. The older woman watched them from across the room, her gaze calculating whenever it landed on Serena. By the time they left, Serena's earlier euphoria had dimmed. In the privacy of the limousine, she finally voiced her concern. "Your mother doesn't approve of me being here tonight, does she?" Grayson sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not about you specifically. She's cautious about anyone close to our family. She worries about Theo and me. She thinks I might take advantage somehow," Serena concluded quietly. "Her concerns are misplaced," Grayson insisted, taking her hand. "I know who you are, Serena. That's what matters." His touch was warm, reassuring, but as they rode in silence back to the estate, Serena couldn't shake the feeling that Eleanor Whitlock was not someone to be dismissed so easily. The following morning dawned clear and cold. Serena rose early to prepare Theo's favorite chocolate chip pancakes, a weekend tradition they'd established. She was whisking batter in the kitchen when the doorbell rang. Edith, who usually had Saturdays off, wasn't there to answer it. "I'll get it." Serena called upstairs to where Theo was still playing in his room. She opened the grand front door to find Eleanor Whitlock standing on the porch, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy coat and pearls despite the early hour. In her hands was a to-go tray with 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Mrs. Whitlock," Serena said, surprised. "Good morning." "Grayson isn't home right now. He went for an early run." "I'm aware," Eleanor replied with a tight smile. "Actually, it's you I came to see, Miss Brooks. May I come in?" Serena's stomach tightened with apprehension, but she stepped aside. "Of course. Please." Eleanor handed Serena one of the coffees as she entered. "I thought we could have a chat, and please, call me Eleanor." "All right, Eleanor," Serena said cautiously, leading her into the sunroom adjacent to the kitchen for privacy. She accepted the coffee out of politeness, though her appetite for it had vanished. Before Serena could ask about the purpose of the visit, Eleanor cut to the chase. "Miss Brooks, Serena, I'll be frank. I've been uneasy since meeting you last night. I needed to understand the situation for myself, hence this visit." She glanced through the doorway toward the kitchen, then to the stairs where Theo's voice could be heard softly singing to himself. Lowering her voice, she continued, "I see that my grandson is quite attached to you, and my son as well. They both clearly trust you. For that, I am grateful. However, I must consider the long-term implications." Serena sat straighter, bracing herself. "I understand you're concerned about Theo's well-being. I assure you, I care for him deeply." Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's not just Theo, it's the entire picture. My son's life comes with certain complexities. His position, his wealth, our family's reputation. These are not things I take lightly. I'm sure you can imagine we've had our share of people trying to take advantage, especially when vulnerability shows. Heat rose to Serena's cheeks. Mrs. Whitlock, if this is about money or status, I have never asked Grayson for anything beyond my salary. I don't want anything from him except to do the job I was hired for. Eleanor studied her with a cool, penetrating gaze. Perhaps your intentions started pure, but feelings can get messy, can't they? I see the way my son looks at you and how you look at him. It doesn't take much to put two and two together. Serena's heart pounded. She opened her mouth to respond, but Eleanor held up a slender hand. I'm not here to attack you, my dear, she said, voice smooth but firm. I'm here to offer a pragmatic solution. Should there be any romantic entanglement, it could complicate things for Theo and for Grayson's work. He's under intense scrutiny. Gossip about an affair with a hired help could damage the company's reputation. You might care for him, even love him, I can respect that. But love alone doesn't erase differences in background. Eventually, those differences cause heartache. I don't want my son hurt again, nor do I want my grandson to become attached to someone who might not stay. Each word, though politely phrased, struck Serena like a dagger. I would never hurt them, she said quietly, tears threatening. I didn't plan any of this. And I know I'm just a— Don't say just a waitress, Eleanor interrupted sharply. Grayson mentioned your nursing aspirations and how capable you've been. This isn't about you not being good enough as a person, Serena. It's about the worlds you come from. They rarely merge. Successfully. I've seen many attempts and watched them crumble under societal pressures. My son has been through enough pain losing Helena. I won't stand by and let him or Theo be hurt again. Serena blinked, a tear escaping despite her efforts to maintain composure. What is it you expect me to do, then? Eleanor sighed as if the conversation burdened her. She reached into her designer purse and withdrew an envelope. Inside is a check, a very generous amount that could make a down payment on a home or fund the rest of your education, whatever you choose. Consider it a gift to help you start the life you want. In return, I expect that you'll step down from your position here and quietly distance yourself from my family. Serena stared at the envelope, a mix of anger, hurt, and disbelief swirling inside her. It was both insulting and, in a twisted way, tempting. The money would solve her financial struggles, yet accepting it would break her heart and likely Theo's and Grayson's in the process. With trembling fingers, Serena accepted the envelope but didn't open it. I don't want your money, Mrs. Whitlock, she said softly. But I also don't want to cause trouble for Grayson or Theo. They mean everything to me. Eleanor's expression remained unreadable, though Serena thought she glimpsed a flicker of sympathy. I believe you, and I believe you never intended harm. Sometimes doing the right thing feels terrible in the moment, but prevents greater pain later. Before Serena could respond, footsteps padded into the room. Theo appeared at the doorway, backpack on and a puzzled expression on his face. Serena? Grandma? He looked between them. I'm ready for breakfast. Are you making pancakes, Serena? You promised chocolate chip ones. Eleanor gave Serena a brief, meaningful look before turning to Theo with a bright smile. Actually, darling, I thought we might have breakfast out today. Just us. How does that sound? We can go to that place with the Mickey Mouse pancakes you like. Theo looked uncertain, glancing at Serena. She forced a smile despite the lump in her throat. It's okay, Theo. Grandma Eleanor wants to spend time with you. We can make pancakes tomorrow, all right? Okay. Theo agreed reluctantly. He hugged Serena quickly. Bye, Serena. See you later. Love you. Serena hugged him tightly, closing her eyes to prevent more tears. I love you too, kiddo. Be good. She released him and stood, watching as Eleanor took Theo's hand. The boy waved once more as Eleanor led him out. At the door, Eleanor paused, glancing back at Serena with an inscrutable expression, perhaps a mix of satisfaction and regret, before they disappeared. Alone in the silent house, Serena stared at the envelope in her hands. Her first instinct was to tear it up, throw it away, and pretend the conversation never happened. but Eleanor's words echoed painfully in her mind. What if she was right? What if staying would ultimately hurt Grayson and Theo more? Serena sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. The emerald dress from last night still hung in her closet, a reminder of how perfectly she had fit into Grayson's world for one magical evening. But reality was harsher than fairy tales. A former waitress with community college education, medical debt, and no family connections. Could she really become part of Grayson Whitlock's life without causing complications? Hours later, after much soul-searching and many tears, Serena made her decision. With shaking hands, she wrote 2 letters, one for the diner explaining her resignation, and one for Grayson. The latter was the hardest thing she'd ever written, each word costing her a piece of her heart. In it, she thanked him for the opportunity, expressed how much she treasured their time together, and explained she needed to leave immediately for personal reasons. She couldn't bring herself to mention Eleanor's visit or the check, which she had torn up and discarded. She simply apologized for the abrupt departure and wished them happiness. By early afternoon, Serena had packed her essentials into a single suitcase. She placed her letter on the kitchen counter where Grayson would find it upon returning with Theo. With one last look around the home that had come to mean so much to her, she slipped out the back door and walked to the main road, where she called a taxi. The driver found her waiting by the estate gates, eyes red from crying but resolve firm on her face. "Where to, miss?" he asked, as she climbed in with her solitary suitcase. Serena hesitated only briefly. "The bus station, please, and then the train station after that." As the taxi pulled away, she didn't look back at the magnificent house on the hill. If she had, her determination might have crumbled at the thought of Theo's confusion when he returned to find her gone, or Grayson's pain when he read her letter. Instead, she focused on the road ahead, tears falling silently as she left behind the 2 people who had become her heart. Sometimes love meant walking away, even when every step felt like walking on broken glass. She hoped someday they would understand that she left not because she didn't love them, but because she did. Too much to risk becoming the source of their pain, the pain of walking away from those we love, believing it's for their benefit. Have you ever made a heart-wrenching sacrifice thinking it was the right thing to do? If this moment resonates with you, let me know with a like and drop a heart in the comments. The estate felt unusually quiet when Grayson returned with Theo late that afternoon. After an unexpected breakfast with Eleanor, they'd spent the day at the Children's Science Museum, his mother's suggestion, which had struck Grayson as oddly spontaneous for someone who typically planned everything meticulously. Throughout the day, he'd texted Serena updates about their whereabouts, but received no replies. He'd attributed her silence to perhaps sleeping in after their late night at the gala. "Serena," Theo called as they entered the house, shrugging off his coat. "We saw real dinosaur bones, and I got to touch a meteorite from space." No answer came from within the silent house. "She's probably in the guest house," Grayson suggested, though an uneasy feeling began to settle in his stomach. "Why don't you go wash up from our adventure while I check?" As Theo bounded upstairs, Grayson moved through the quiet rooms, calling Serena's name. In the kitchen, a bowl of pancake batter sat abandoned on the counter, now dried and crusty around the edges, evidence of a breakfast preparation interrupted hours ago. Beside it lay an envelope with his name written in Serena's neat handwriting. With growing dread, Grayson opened it. His eyes scanned the page, his heart sinking further with each carefully penned sentence. "Dear Grayson, I regret to inform you that I must resign my position effective immediately due to unforeseen personal circumstances. Please know this isn't a decision I've made lightly. My time with you and Theo has been among the most precious months of my life. You both welcomed me into your home and treated me with kindness and respect I'll never forget. Watching Theo grow and helping him learn has been an absolute joy. You and Theo changed my life in ways I never expected. I will forever cherish our memories together and the lessons I've learned. I apologize for the abrupt nature of my departure and any inconvenience it causes. Please tell Theo how much I care for him. I'm sorry I couldn't say goodbye properly. With deepest gratitude and best wishes for your continued happiness, Serena. Grayson read the letter twice more, disbelief turning to confusion, then to a sharp ache in his chest. None of this made sense. Just last night they had danced together, nearly kissed. There had been a connection so tangible it seemed to vibrate between them. This morning she'd been preparing Theo's favorite breakfast. What unforeseen personal circumstances could possibly have arisen in those few hours? "Dad, where's Serena?" Theo's voice from the doorway pulled Grayson from his thoughts. She had to go out. Grayson hedged, not ready to share the full truth until he understood it himself. Theo frowned, unusually perceptive for his age. "But her pancake bowl is still here, and she always texts when she goes out. Is she coming back for dinner?" Grayson crouched to his son's level, struggling to find words that wouldn't alarm him. "Buddy, it looks like Serena had to leave unexpectedly. She might be gone for a while." Theo's eyes widened, comprehension dawning slowly. "Gone? Like, gone? She left us?" "I'm trying to figure that out," Grayson said gently, placing his hands on Theo's shoulders. "I'm sure there's an explanation." Theo's face crumpled, his small body beginning to tremble. "But she didn't say goodbye. She wouldn't just leave without saying goodbye, Dad. She promised she wouldn't ever leave like Mom did. She promised." The raw pain in his son's voice cut Grayson to the core. He gathered Theo into his arms as the boy began to sob, his little hands clutching Grayson's shirt desperately. "I know, buddy. I know," he murmured, his own throat tight with emotion. "We'll figure this out." Over Theo's shoulder, Grayson noticed something in the kitchen trash bin, torn pieces of paper that hadn't been there the previous night. Setting Theo gently on a stool with promises to return immediately, he investigated. Pulling out the fragments and assembling them on the counter, what he pieced together sent a wave of cold fury through him. Avoided. Check for an obscene amount of money, signed by Eleanor Whitlock. "Your grandmother came by this morning?" Grayson asked Theo, keeping his voice carefully neutral despite the anger building inside him. Theo nodded, wiping his tears. "She was talking to Serena when I came downstairs. They looked serious. Then Grandma said she wanted to take me to breakfast. Just us." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. His mother had deliberately removed Theo from the house to speak with Serena alone. And whatever she had said, coupled with this attempt at a payoff, had driven Serena away. "Theo, I need to make a phone call. Can you go pick a book for us to read together in a few minutes?" Once Theo had reluctantly gone upstairs, Grayson pulled out his phone and dialed Serena's number. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again with the same result, then sent a text. "Serena, please call me. Whatever my mother said or did, we can fix this. Please, just talk to me." No response came. Growing more desperate, Grayson called Martin and instructed him to drive to Serena's apartment building immediately. While waiting for news, he tried reaching several places Serena might have gone: the diner, the nursing school administration, office, even Ruby, her friend from the diner, whose number he'd once noted when Serena had invited her over for dinner. Each inquiry yielded nothing useful. Ruby, sounding concerned, confirmed Serena had stopped by the apartment briefly to drop off her resignation. At the diner, then left with a suitcase, mentioning only that she needed space to think. When Martin called back reporting that Serena wasn't at her apartment either, Grayson made one final call, to his mother. Eleanor answered on the second ring, her voice smooth and untroubled. "Grayson, darling, did you and Theo enjoy the museum? What did you do?" Grayson demanded without preamble, his voice low and controlled despite the rage simmering beneath. A pause. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Serena is gone, Mother. She resigned abruptly after your little chat this morning, and I found the torn pieces of your check in our trash. So I'll ask again, what did you do?" Eleanor sighed, dropping the pretense. "I did what was necessary to protect you and Theo. That girl, while undoubtedly kind, doesn't belong in our world. You were becoming emotionally involved. Anyone could see it at the gala. I simply helped her see the complications such a relationship would cause." "You had no right," Grayson stated, his voice shaking with controlled fury. No right whatsoever to interfere in my life or my relationship with Serena. I had every right as your mother to protect you from another heartbreak, Eleanor countered. These infatuations with people from different backgrounds never end well, Grayson. She would have eventually realized she didn't fit into your life, or worse, stayed for the wrong reasons. The wrong reasons? Grayson nearly laughed in disbelief. She tore up your check, Mother. She didn't want your money. That just proves she's cleverer than most, Eleanor said dismissively. Playing the long game, Grayson closed his eyes, fighting for control. You don't understand, Mother, he said, voice low and quivering with emotion. I love her. I love Serena, and Theo does too. She's family to us. And you drove her away. The admission, the first time he'd spoken those words aloud, even to himself, hung in the silence between them. Eleanor seemed momentarily stunned. You can't possibly. I can, and I do. Grayson cut her off. And now I need to fix what you've done. Don't call me again until you're ready to apologize, to both of us. He ended the call before she could respond, leaning against the counter to steady himself. The realization of his feelings for Serena had crystallized in this moment of potential loss. He loved her completely, not just for what she'd done for Theo, but for who she was, kind, genuine. Not just for what she'd done for Theo, but for who she was, kind, genuine, resilient, and utterly herself in a world that valued pretense. Theo appeared in the doorway, clutching his favorite storybook. Dad, are you okay? Your face looks funny. Grayson knelt to his son's level. Theo, do you remember meeting Serena's mom on that video call a few weeks ago? Theo nodded. She was nice. She had a cat. That's right. I think Serena might have gone to stay with her mom for a while. What do you think about us going to find her? To ask her to come back? Hope bloomed on Theo's tear-stained face. Right now? Tonight? Yes, right now, Grayson confirmed, making the decision as he spoke. It's a bit of a drive, but I think Serena needs to hear from both of us how much we want her to come home. Yes, let's go get her. Theo bounced with sudden energy. I'll get my shoes. While Theo raced to prepare, Grayson quickly researched the address. Serena had mentioned her mother lived in Millfield, a small town about 2 hours from Eastbrook. He'd never been there, but he remembered Serena describing the little blue house with the crooked mailbox during one of their late-night conversations. By the time Martin brought the car around, Grayson had packed an overnight bag for Theo and grabbed blankets for the drive. It was already past 7 in the evening, and they might not make it back tonight, depending on how things went. Where to, sir? Martin asked as they settled into the car. Millfield, Grayson replied, helping Theo buckle his seatbelt. We're going to find Serena. As the car pulled away from the estate, Theo leaned against his father's side, still clutching his book. Dad, why did Serena leave? Did we do something wrong? Grayson wrapped an arm around his son's shoulders. Nobody. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes based on what they think is right. Serena probably thought she was doing what was best for us, even though it hurt her to leave. That's silly, Theo declared with the simple logic of a child. The best thing for us is having her here. You're absolutely right, Grayson agreed. And that's exactly what we're going to tell her. As they drove through the darkening evening, city lights giving way to suburbs and eventually to the scattered illumination of small towns, Grayson replayed his final conversation with Eleanor. The conviction with which he'd declared his love for Serena had surprised even him, not the feeling itself, which had been growing for months, but the certainty of it, the rightness. She had entered their lives by chance, a waitress who showed kindness to a sick child, and transformed their home from a place of lingering grief to one filled with laughter and warmth. She'd taught Theo to trust again, to open his heart. She'd shown Grayson how to be present, to find joy in small moments, to remember what truly mattered beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. And he had let her walk away without a fight. The thought propelled him forward with renewed determination as Martin navigated the winding roads toward Millfield. Each mile brought a growing certainty he would find Serena, he would tell her everything in his heart, and he would ask her to come home, not as Theo's caregiver, but as the woman he loved. How much longer? Theo asked, yawning despite his excitement. About an hour, Grayson replied, checking his watch. It was nearly 10 o'clock. You can sleep if you want. I'll wake you when we get there. Theo shook his head stubbornly. I want to be awake. I need to tell Serena about the meteorite I touched, and that I miss her pancakes, and that it's not the same without her. I know, buddy, Grayson said softly. I miss her too. Theo eventually dozed off despite his best efforts, head resting against Grayson's arm. Grayson gazed out at the passing darkness, rehearsing what he would say when, if, they found Serena. Would she even want to see him? Would she believe that his feelings were genuine, not just gratitude or convenience? What if Eleanor's words had convinced her that their worlds were too different to bridge? As the lights of Millfield appeared on the horizon, Grayson gently woke Theo. We're almost there, buddy. Time to wake up. Theo blinked sleepily, then sat up straight as he remembered their mission. Are we going to bring Serena home tonight? I hope so, Grayson answered honestly. But it's her choice. We can only tell her how we feel, and hope she feels the same way. They drove through the quiet main street of Millfield, following GPS directions to a residential area of modest homes. Finally, Martin pulled up in front of a small bungalow with blue siding and a porch light glowing warmly against the night. The mailbox at the end of the walkway tilted slightly to one side, the crooked mailbox Serena had described. This is it, Grayson said, heart pounding. He lifted a drowsy Theo into his arms, wrapping him in a blanket against the December chill. Let's go see if Serena's here. With Theo in his arms, Grayson walked the short path to the front door and knocked firmly but politely. Though it was past midnight, the porch light suggested someone might still be awake. After a moment, the light flickered brighter and the door opened a crack. A cautious female voice spoke from within. Hello? Who is it at this hour? Grayson took a deep breath, hope and fear warring within him. Mrs. Brooks? My name is Grayson Whitlock. I'm sorry to bother you so late, but I'm looking for Serena. I believe she might be here. The door opened wider, revealing a kind-faced woman in a robe, unmistakably Serena's mother, with the same warm eyes. She looked at Grayson in surprise, then her gaze fell to the drowsy boy in his arms. Is Serena here? Theo asked in a small, hopeful voice. Before Mrs. Brooks could answer, a familiar figure appeared behind her in the hallway. Serena stood there in a simple cardigan and jeans, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. When she saw Grayson standing on her mother's porch with Theo in his arms, her hand flew to her mouth in shock. Grayson. Theo. In that moment, Grayson knew they had made the right choice in coming. Whatever happened next, whatever words were exchanged, they had found her, and he had no intention of leaving without telling her exactly what she meant to them, to him, Serena. Theo's drowsy voice instantly brightened as he reached his arms out. Toward her, nearly tumbling from Grayson's grip in his eagerness. Serena stood frozen for a heartbeat, her mind struggling to process the impossible sight. Before her, Grayson, Theo on her mother's doorstep at midnight, 2 hours from home. Then instinct took over, and she stepped forward to take Theo from Grayson's arms, gathering the boy against her chest. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice breaking as she held him close. His familiar weight, the scent of his shampoo, the way his small arms wrapped tightly around her neck, it overwhelmed her senses. "I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. You left without saying goodbye," Theo mumbled against her shoulder, his voice quavering between accusation and relief. "Why did you leave us?" Serena kissed the top of his head, tears spilling freely now. "It's complicated, honey, but I'm here now." Mrs. Brooks opened the door wider, ushering them all inside from the cold night air. "Please, come in. It's freezing out there, and the neighbors will have plenty to talk about if we have a midnight scene on the porch." Her gentle humor did little to dispel the tension, but it moved them into the house's warmth. Serena led them into her mother's modest living room, still holding Theo, who refused to release his grip on her. The contrast between this simple home and the Whitlock mansion couldn't be more stark. Faded floral furniture, hand-crocheted afghans draped over the backs of chairs, family photos in mismatched frames covering one wall. Yet the warmth here wasn't just from the small fireplace. It radiated from the generations of love that had filled these rooms. Grayson stood just inside the doorway, his tall frame making the small room seem even cozier. His eyes never left Serena's face, drinking in the sight of her as if memorizing her features all over again. "Serena," he began, his voice husky with emotion. "Please help me understand. Why did you leave? Was it something I did? Or—" The unfinished question hung between them. They both knew the answer. Serena glanced down at Theo, then at her mother, who hovered nearby with concern etched on her face. "Mom, could you take Theo to the kitchen for a minute? I think there's some of that chocolate cake from earlier. Maybe he'd like a slice." At the mention of cake, Theo lifted his head slightly, but anxiety flickered across his face. "You're not going to leave again, are you?" he asked, his voice small and frightened. Serena hugged him tighter. "No, honey, I'm not going anywhere right now, I promise. I just need to talk to your dad for a moment, okay? I'll be right here." After gentle coaxing, Theo allowed himself to be passed to Mrs. Brooks, though. His eyes remained fixed on Serena until he disappeared into the kitchen. Alone now, Serena and Grayson faced each other across the small living room, an arm's length apart. The weight of everything unsaid pressed heavily between them. "It was my mother, wasn't it?" Grayson finally broke the silence, his voice quiet but certain. Serena nodded, fresh tears threatening. "She came to see me after you took Theo out. She offered you money to leave," Grayson stated. "It wasn't a question. She only did what she thought was best," Serena replied, her natural empathy emerging even now. "She was afraid I'd cause problems for you and Theo in the long run." Grayson closed his eyes briefly, a muscle in his jaw twitching with suppressed emotion. "I found the torn check in the trash." "You didn't take her money?" "Of course not," Serena whispered, looking down at her hands. "How could I?" But part of me wondered if maybe she was right. She raised her eyes to meet his. "Your worlds are so different from mine, Grayson." The gala made that clear. Eventually those differences might hurt all of us. Grayson took a step closer, his gaze intense. "Eleanor was wrong, Serena, and you were wrong to believe her." The conviction in his voice made Serena's breath catch. "Yes, our backgrounds are different," he continued. "Yes, there will be challenges. But that doesn't matter, not compared to what we've built together. You've shown me what truly matters in life. Before you came, I was just going through motions, providing for Theo materially, but missing the heart of what he needed. You changed that. You changed us." Serena blinked back tears. "Grayson, I love you," he interrupted, the words falling between them like stones, into still water, creating ripples that could never be undone. "I love you, Serena. Not for what you do for Theo, though that means the world to me. I love you for your compassion, your honesty, your strength, for the way you hum when you cook, for how you laugh with your whole body when something truly amuses you, for your determination to improve yourself while always helping others." Serena stood transfixed, her heart pounding against her ribs. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. "I never expected to fall in love with you both." Hope blazed in Grayson's eyes at her admission. "You love me too?" A small, broken laugh escaped her. "How could I not? You're everything I never knew I wanted. Kind, thoughtful, humble despite your success. The way you look at Theo like he's the greatest miracle in your life. How you always listen, really listen, when people speak." She drew a shaky breath. "But loving you doesn't change reality. People will talk. Your mother won't be the only one who disapproves. Your business associates, Theo's school friends, parents—" "Let them talk," Grayson said firmly, closing the distance between them. "Let them disapprove. I spent 2 years after Helena died trying to please everyone else, the board, the shareholders, my mother. I forgot how to follow my heart." He took her hands in his, the touch sending warmth cascading through her veins. "My heart led me here tonight. To you. If you love us and we love you, that's what matters. Everything else is just noise." Serena couldn't fight it any longer. She nodded through her tears. "I do love you, both of you. Leaving was the hardest thing I've ever done. Relief washed over Grayson's face. He reached up, gently cupping her face between his palms. "I love you, Serena Brooks," he repeated, his voice thick with emotion, "with everything I am. I think I knew it the first night, watching you comfort Theo, and every day since, that love has only grown stronger." "I love you too," she whispered, the words feeling both terrifying and perfectly right. Grayson's eyes dropped to her lips, asking a silent question. Serena answered by closing the distance between them, pressing her lips to his in their first kiss. It began tentatively, a gentle brush of lips that held the tenderness of new love, then deepened, years of loneliness and months of growing connection pouring into this moment of connection. His arms encircled her, drawing her against the solid warmth of his chest. Her hands found the nape of his neck, fingers threading through his hair. The kiss held everything they'd been unable to say: fear, hope, desire, commitment. When they finally parted, both breathing unsteadily, Serena kept her eyes closed for a moment, savoring the lingering sensation. "Yay," came a delighted voice from the kitchen doorway. They turned to find Theo watching them, chocolate frosting smeared around, his grin, with Mrs. Brooks unsuccessfully trying to shush him behind. Serena and Grayson exchanged glances and laughed softly, the tension broken by the child's innocent joy. "Come here, buddy," Grayson called, extending his arm. Theo raced over, chocolate cake forgotten. Serena crouched down as the boy flung himself at both of them, his small arms trying to encircle them together. Grayson knelt too, completing their circle, the three of them holding each other in the middle of the modest living room. "We're together again," Theo declared, his earlier distress replaced by pure happiness. "Together again," Serena agreed, kissing his forehead and then smiling up at Grayson over the boy's head. Mrs. Brooks discreetly retreated to the kitchen, giving them privacy to cement their reunion. In the living room, the three remained entwined, each savoring the rightness of their embrace. After a moment, Grayson spoke softly to Theo. "How would you feel about Serena coming back home with us?" "Yes." Theo bounced on his toes. "Right now? Tonight?" "If Serena wants to," Grayson replied, his eyes seeking hers for confirmation. "I do," Serena said firmly. "There's nothing I want more." Theo's excitement bubbled over as he peppered them with questions about when they would leave, whether Serena would make pancakes tomorrow, if they could still put up Christmas decorations together as planned. His chatter filled the room with normalcy and joy, healing the wounds of their brief separation. As Theo wound down, his adrenaline finally giving way to the late hour, Grayson scooped him up. "I think someone needs sleep before our drive back tomorrow." Mrs. Brooks reappeared from the kitchen. "I've made up the guest room for you all. It's small, but there's a double bed for you two. And I can bring in Serena's old trundle for Theo." "That's very kind of you, Mrs. Brooks," Grayson said sincerely. "Please, call me Margaret," she replied with a warm smile. "I think we're going to be seeing a lot of each other from now on." While Margaret prepared the sleeping arrangements, Serena led Grayson to the cozy guest room. They settled a drowsy Theo on the trundle bed, tucking blankets around him. Within minutes, exhausted from the emotional day and late hour, he drifted to sleep. Sitting on the edge of the main bed, Serena and Grayson watched his peaceful breathing. Grayson's arm slipped around her waist, drawing her close against his side. "I spoke with my mother on the drive here," he said quietly. "She wants to apologize to you in person. I think seeing how determined I was to find you made her realize her mistake." Serena nodded against his shoulder. "I'm willing to talk with her. I understand she was trying to protect her family. We'll find a way forward." Grayson pulled back slightly to look into her face, wonder in his expression. "You're remarkable, do you know that? After what she did, you're ready to forgive her." "I never wanted to come between you and your mother," Serena explained softly. "Family is too important to throw away over misunderstandings, even painful ones." He touched her cheek gently, tracing the curve of her jawline. "You really are the heart of our family now. Your compassion, your forgiveness, it's who you are." "Family," Serena repeated, the word filling her with warmth. "Is that what we are?" "Without question," Grayson confirmed. "And speaking of family," he hesitated, then continued with quiet intensity, I meant what I said earlier. We'll face everything together. And one day, when the time feels right, I want to make it official. Serena's breath caught. Official? He took both her hands in his expression earnest. Not tonight, not tomorrow, but someday soon. I'm going to ask you to marry me, Serena. I want you to know that's where my heart is headed. There's no one else I'd rather share my life with. Tears of happiness gathered in Serena's eyes. You always know how to make a moment perfect, don't you? I mean it, he whispered, his gaze never leaving hers. I love you, and I love the life we're building together. I love you too, she replied, leaning forward to kiss him softly. Whatever the future holds, we'll face it together. They settled onto the bed, too emotionally drained for anything but sleep. Grayson drew her into his arms, her head resting naturally against his chest where she could hear the steady rhythm of his heart. Outside, snow began to fall, dusting the small town in white. But inside their room, with Theo sleeping peacefully beside them, there was only warmth. In the stillness before sleep claimed her, Serena reflected on the journey that had brought her here. 2 months ago, she had been a waitress working the late shift, struggling to make ends meet, her life following predictable patterns. Then a feverish child and his desperate father had entered her diner, and everything changed. She had feared that social differences would tear them apart, that she couldn't belong in Grayson's world of wealth and privilege. But tonight had shown her the truth. They had created their own world together, one built on love, trust, and genuine connection, a world where backgrounds mattered less than the bonds they had formed. As sleep finally overtook her, Serena's last conscious thought was one of profound gratitude. Sometimes life's greatest blessings came disguised as ordinary moments, like wiping down tables on a quiet night. At a diner, never suspecting that an act of kindness would lead to the family she'd always longed for. Morning sunlight streamed through Margaret Brooks's kitchen windows as the small family prepared to return home. Despite having slept little, they were energized by the emotional resolution of the night before. Theo chattered excitedly between bites of his grandmother's blueberry pancakes already, calling Margaret Grandma Brooks with the easy acceptance only children possess. "Will you come visit us for Christmas, Grandma Brooks?" Theo asked, swinging his legs beneath the kitchen chair. "We have a really big tree, and Serena said we could make those cookies with the frosting faces." Margaret smiled, ruffling his hair. "I'd love that, sweetheart. If it's all right with your father." "More than all right," Grayson confirmed warmly. "Our home is your home now, Margaret." Serena watched this exchange with quiet joy, her mother and Grayson getting acquainted over coffee, while Theo created elaborate plans for holiday celebrations. This blending of their worlds, her simple, loving upbringing with Grayson's more privileged life, felt right in a way she hadn't dared hope for yesterday. After breakfast, as they prepared to leave, Margaret pulled Serena aside for a private moment on the porch. "Are you sure about this, honey?" she asked gently. "It's all happening so fast." Serena squeezed her mother's hands. "I've never been more certain of anything. I know it seems sudden, but these feelings have been growing for months. He's the one, Mom. And Theo." Her voice softened. "That little boy already owns my heart." Margaret nodded, eyes misty. "I can see how they look at you, like you're the center of their universe." She cupped her daughter's cheek. "That's all I've ever wanted for you, to be truly loved for exactly who you are." The drive back to Eastbrook felt entirely different from Serena's tearful departure the day before. Theo dozed in the back seat, exhausted from the night's adventures, while Serena and Grayson held hands. Over the center console, occasionally exchanging glances filled with wonder at their new reality. "What are you thinking?" Grayson asked softly, noticing her gaze out the window at the passing winter landscape. "That yesterday, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered," Serena replied. "And today I'm going home with the two people I love most in the world. It doesn't feel real yet." Grayson lifted their joined hands, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. "It's real. And it's just beginning." When they arrived at the Whitlock estate in the early afternoon, Serena felt a momentary hesitation at the gates. The magnificent house had been her workplace for months, but returning now as Grayson, his acknowledged love rather than an employee, shifted her perspective entirely. Grayson seemed to read her thoughts. "It's different now, isn't it?" he said, as Martin drove them up the circular driveway. "Yes," she admitted, "but in a good way. It finally feels like I'm coming home, not just to work." Inside, Edith greeted them with poorly concealed relief, fussing over Theo and discreetly squeezing Serena's hand in welcome. "The house wasn't right without you," she whispered. "I'm glad you're back where you belong." The afternoon passed in comfortable domesticity. Serena unpacked her small suitcase, moving her belongings from the guest house into Grayson. His master suite, a step they'd agreed upon in whispered conversations the night before. Theo helped enthusiastically, carrying her books and arranging her hairbrush, and Mira on her side of Grayson's dresser with solemn ceremony. By evening, Theo was flagging, the excitement and disrupted sleep catching up with him. After dinner, Serena and Grayson took him upstairs together for bedtime, a ritual that felt profoundly different now. "Can you both read to me tonight?" Theo asked sleepily as Serena tucked the blankets around him. "The one about the boy who finds a family of dragons." "Of course," Grayson agreed, settling on one side of the bed while Serena sat on the other, creating a protective circle around the child they both loved. They alternated pages, their voices blending into a harmony that lulled Theo towards sleep. Before the final page, his eyes had already closed, his breathing deep and peaceful. Grayson closed the book gently. "I think our audience is asleep," he whispered. Serena leaned down to kiss Theo's forehead. "Sweet dreams, my brave boy," she murmured. "Thank you for coming to find me." They left his room quietly, the nightlight casting star-shaped patterns across the ceiling. In the hallway, Grayson drew Serena into his arms, holding her close, as if reassuring himself she was truly there. "I was so afraid I'd lost you," he confessed against her hair. "When I found your letter, it felt like the ground had disappeared from under my feet." Serena leaned back to see his face, reaching up to trace the faint worry lines around his eyes. "I'm sorry I put you through that. I thought I was protecting you both from complications. The only complication would be living without you," Grayson said simply. "Everything else, public opinion, social differences, even my mother, is disapproval. Those are just obstacles we'll navigate together." Later that evening, as they sat in the living room before a crackling fire, Grayson brought up the subject they'd been postponing. "We should talk about my mother," he said carefully. "She called again while you were helping Theo organize his bookshelf. She wants to come by tomorrow." Serena nodded, curling her feet beneath her on the sofa. "I think that's a good idea. We need to clear the air if we're going to move forward as a family." "You don't have to forgive her right away," Grayson cautioned. "What she did was manipulative and hurtful." "I know," Serena agreed. "But holding on to anger won't help any of us, especially Theo. He deserves to have his grandmother in his life, even if she and I need time to build a genuine relationship." Grayson's expression softened with admiration. "Your capacity for forgiveness amazes me. It's one of the countless reasons I love you." The next morning brought fresh challenges in the form of Eleanor Whitlock arriving promptly at 11. She entered the house with her customary poise, though Serena noticed a slight hesitation in her step, unusual for a woman who moved through the world with absolute certainty. Grayson had suggested they meet in his study for privacy away from Theo, who was happily constructing a block tower with Edith in the playroom. When Eleanor entered the wood-paneled room, her eyes immediately found Serena sitting beside Grayson on the small sofa. "You came back," she stated simply, her composed facade cracking just slightly. "I did," Serena confirmed, keeping her voice even. "Grayson and Theo convinced me my place is here." Eleanor nodded once, then straightened her shoulders as if preparing for battle. But instead of launching into defense or justification, she surprised them both. "I owe you an apology, Serena," she said quietly. "My actions were inexcusable, regardless of my intentions." Serena remained silent, allowing Eleanor the space to continue. "I've spent my life protecting my family," Eleanor explained, her carefully manicured hands clasped tightly together. Sometimes appropriately, sometimes, as in this case, by overstepping boundaries. I convinced myself I was acting in Grayson and Theo's best interests, but in reality, I was imposing my own fears and prejudices. She paused, meeting Serena's gaze directly. When Grayson told me how desperately he searched for you, how determined he was to bring you home, I realized I had misjudged not only you, but also the depth of his feelings. For that, I am truly sorry. The apology seemed genuine, though Serena knew rebuilding trust would take time. Thank you for saying that, she replied. I understand you were trying to protect your family. That's something I respect, even if I disagreed with your methods. You're very gracious, Eleanor acknowledged. She turned to Grayson. Your father would have handled this better than I did. He always said I was too quick to control situations instead of letting them unfold naturally. Grayson's expression softened slightly at the mention of his late father. Dad was wise that way. He would have liked you, Serena, Eleanor added unexpectedly. He valued authenticity above all else, something I've perhaps lost sight of in recent years. It wasn't perfect reconciliation, but it was a beginning. By the time Theo burst into the study, impatient to show his grandmother his latest art project, the worst of the tension had dissipated. Watching Eleanor kneel beside Theo, genuinely interested in his detailed explanation of his drawing, Serena allowed herself to hope that, given time, they might build something resembling family harmony. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of joyful adjustments and new routines. Spring bloomed across the estate gardens, mirroring the flourishing relationships within the house. Serena had fully settled into her new role, not as Theo's caregiver, but as a true partner to Grayson and a loving maternal figure to Theo. She had resumed her nursing studies with Grayson's full support, attending classes 3 days a week while still having plenty of time for family life. Eleanor had made gradual efforts to mend fences, inviting Serena for occasional lunches, and even asking her advice about a charity healthcare initiative she was spearheading. On a perfect May evening, Grayson suggested a walk through the garden after dinner. Theo had already been collected by Eleanor for their weekly grandma night, a tradition that had emerged as part of Eleanor's attempt to strengthen family bonds. The roses are particularly beautiful this year, Serena remarked as they strolled hand in hand along stone pathways lined with blooming flowers. The setting sun cast golden light across the manicured landscape, creating a dreamlike quality. They are, Grayson agreed, though his attention seemed elsewhere. Let's sit by the fountain for a moment. The central fountain, a classical marble piece featuring water cascading over smooth stone, had become one of Serena's favorite spots on the property. They settled on the stone bench beside it, the gentle splashing of water creating a soothing backdrop. Are you all right? Serena asked, noticing Grayson's unusual quietness. You seem distracted tonight. He smiled, taking both her hands in his. I've been thinking about promises, he said softly. Specifically, one I made to you that night at your mother's house. Serena's heart began to race as she remembered his words. Someday soon, I'm going to ask you to marry me. These past 6 months have been the happiest of my life, Grayson continued, his eyes never leaving hers. Watching you become part of our family, seeing how you've helped Theo blossom, falling more deeply in love with you each day. It's more than I ever dared hope for after losing Helena. He released her hands to reach into his pocket, withdrawing a small velvet box. I promised to ask when the time felt right. Every morning I wake up beside you, every night we tuck Theo in together, every moment in between. They all feel right, Serena. Our life together feels right. Tears gathered in Serena's eyes as Grayson slid from the bench to one knee before her, opening the box to reveal a stunning yet understated diamond ring. Serena Brooks, you walked into our lives by chance and stayed by choice. You've brought laughter, warmth, and love back into our home. Will you marry me? Will you officially become the family we already know you are? Yes, Serena whispered through happy tears. Yes, of course I will. As Grayson slipped the ring onto her finger, she marveled at how perfectly it suited her, elegant but not ostentatious, unique without being flashy. Just like their love, it balanced their different worlds into something harmonious and beautiful. Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of running footsteps and a delighted shout. Did she say yes? Dad, did she say yes? They turned to find Theo racing toward them, Eleanor following at a more dignified pace, an uncharacteristically broad smile on her face. She said yes, Grayson confirmed, lifting his son into a celebratory hug. I knew it. Theo crowed triumphantly. I helped pick the ring, and Grandma helped me practice being ring bearer. I'm going to be the best ring bearer ever. Serena laughed through her tears, opening her arms to include Theo in their embrace. You knew about this? It was supposed to be a surprise, Eleanor admitted, approaching the fountain. But someone could hardly contain his excitement on the drive over. The best kind of surprise, Serena assured them, her heart full as she looked at the three faces surrounding her, her new family, complete. The wedding took place in late summer, a celebration that blended elegance with heartfelt simplicity. Serena had insisted on keeping the guest list intimate, focusing on quality of connection rather than Grayson's extensive business network. The ceremony was held in the estate gardens, surrounded by roses and hydrangeas in full bloom. Margaret Brooks wept openly as she walked her daughter down the aisle, where Grayson waited beneath an arch of white flowers. Beside him stood Theo, solemn in his miniature suit, proudly bearing the rings on a small pillow. Eleanor watched from the front row, discreetly dabbing at her eyes when she thought no one was looking. I never expected this, Serena said in her vows, her voice steady despite the emotion filling her heart. A chance encounter, a sick little boy, a late-night cup of tea, these ordinary moments created something extraordinary. Grayson, you and Theo taught me that family isn't defined by background or circumstance, but by love freely given and gratefully received. I promise to cherish that gift every day of our lives together. Grayson's voice was thick with emotion as he responded, Serena, you brought light back into our darkest places. You showed me how to be present again, how to open my heart. When I thought it was forever closed, I promised to love you, honor you, and walk beside you through whatever life brings, the ordinary and the extraordinary moments alike. When Theo presented the rings with careful precision, a collective awe rose from the gathered guests. The boy beamed with pride as Grayson knelt to thank him, whispering something that made Theo's smile grow even wider. By the power vested in me, the officiant concluded, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Their kiss was met with applause and cheers, none louder than Theo's exuberant whoop of celebration. 1 year later, autumn leaves danced across the estate grounds as Serena sat on the porch swing, one hand resting on her rounded belly, the other holding her nursing textbook. The gold band on her finger caught the afternoon sunlight, sending small rainbows across the pages. Is my sister kicking again? Theo asked, settling beside her on the swing. At 9 years old now, he'd grown taller, his features maturing, though his enthusiasm remained unchanged. She is, Serena confirmed with a smile, taking his hand and placing it where the baby was most active. Feel that? I think she's practicing soccer moves. Theo's face lit with wonder as he felt the movement beneath his palm. Cool. When will she come out? About 6 more weeks, Serena replied, closing her textbook. Just after I finish my final exams. The past year had brought changes both expected and surprising. Serena had accelerated her nursing program, determined to finish before the baby arrived. Eleanor had mellowed remarkably, her initial reservations about Serena transforming into genuine respect and affection, especially after learning she would have a granddaughter. Margaret Brooks had moved into a comfortable cottage on the estate grounds, bringing her warmth and practicality into their daily lives. Most beautiful of all was watching Grayson embrace fatherhood in new ways, both with Theo, whose confidence and joy had blossomed under the security of their united family, and with the anticipated arrival of their daughter. As if summoned by her thoughts, Grayson appeared at the driveway, returning early from the office as he'd been doing regularly since learning of her pregnancy. How are my favorite people? He called, jogging up the steps to join them. Your daughter is showing off her kickboxing skills, Serena laughed as he leaned down to kiss her, then affectionately ruffled Theo's hair. That's my girl, Grayson said proudly, placing his hand beside Theo's on her belly. strong like her mother. They sat together on the porch swing, Grayson's arm around Serena, Theo leaning against her other side, the autumn breeze gently rocking them back and forth. This simple moment, this ordinary, extraordinary moment of family connection, was everything Serena had ever wanted without knowing to ask for it. From waitress to wife, from stranger to mother, from chance encounter to forever family, her journey had been unexpected in every way. Yet sitting here, surrounded by love on all sides with new life growing within her, Serena knew with absolute certainty this was exactly where she belonged. What an incredible journey we've witnessed. Serena's story reminds us that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin with a simple act of kindness. If this tale of boundaries overcome and hearts united touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe as new powerful stories await you daily. Share in the comments how someone unexpected changed your life, or a time when following your heart led you exactly where you needed to be. Until next time, remember that the most powerful families are those we create through love.